Diddy sent me a party invite. Shit says 10K to come to the party. I would go for free. Fuck yeah, baby.
Somebody just snorted coke off a fucking Grammy. Tonight gonna be insane. All I'm gonna say is, the girls better be showing their ID around here.
They're all calling me Big Diddy Foot now. I've made terrible mistakes.
Diddy has gone wild. Fuck this shit. Everyone ran out and left me here. I'm cooked. This motherfucker found me.
This motherfucker moaned when I slapped him. We've been down here 2 hours. I don't know if I'm the dominant one anymore.
Yeah, I did things last night no man or beast should ever admit. Left them all walking sideways, but zero regrets, honestly.
That party wasn't just wild, Ed. I still see her face. Oh my God, and Diddy's testicles. I think I'm cursed. But honestly, I'm kind of into it.
Wow, that's crazy. There's some crazy videos, ain't there, lately? All these Bigfoot videos, I think they're hysterical. But anyway, so let's do this, and then we'll come back over here, do this. Oh. So anyway, how you doing, everybody? Happy Monday night. I just want to apologize to everybody for having to cut the stream short last night and cut out. My grandson woke up and he needed to get put back to sleep, so I had to end the stream. So I'm gonna pick up where I left off last night with some stories, covering everything as best I can, and I hope you all enjoy it. And it's good. It's what you and it's what people will like. Now, I did put a goal on the stream tonight, which I don't like to do really, because I'm not like, oh, where's the goal? But, I figured I would go for like 2 hours tonight unless we reach the goal, and then I will go for 3 or 4 hours, and we'll see what happens. So anyway, so the first story of the evening, first I'd like to say hi to everybody. Hi, Nunya Business. Hi, Marjorie Smith. Hi, Sharon Taylor. It's nice to see you all here. So the first story of the evening will be, let's see if I can change this a little different here. Make it look different. Is that better? There, is that better? Better. Everyone can see it better. Sounds good. So, from Dan Bongino says, the director and I are absolutely committed to cleaning up the plague of public corruption. We are also committed to weeding out CCP scheming and illicit influence campaigns. Corrupt public officials are on notice. This case is not even the beginning of the beginning. You know who you are, and so do we. And I'll say it again. We are absolutely not asking for anyone's trust. We are in the results business, and the trust will come as the results materialize. Bookmark this tweet. You'll see. God bless America and those who defend her. As you see, this press release says, former high-ranking New York State government employee charged with acting as an undisclosed agent of the People's Republic of Chinese Communist Party. Crazy. Crazy. So this is FBI New York, along with Eastern District New York and the IRSCI New York, announced charges against Linda Sun, a former high-ranking New York State government employee, and her husband for accepting kickbacks in a PPE fraud scheme. During the global pandemic, Linda Sun allegedly leveraged her authority within the New York State government to secretly steer contracts and selected PPE vendors in exchange for millions of dollars in kickbacks to her and her husband. This alleged scheme not only created an unearned and undisclosed benefit for the defendants and their relatives, but it also exploited the state's critical need for resources in a health crisis. The FBI will never tolerate any public official who abuses their position to profit at the expense of others, especially when their objectives align with foreign agendas. Yeah, so is anyone surprised another employee of Kathy Hochul's being investigated? She had a Chinese spy, AG, that completes fraud. And now this. By next year, maybe half her staff will be in prison. Let's see. Am I too loud? Let's see. Accused of acting as a Chinese agent, New York governor's aide now faces pandemic fraud charges too. Already charged with acting as an illicit agent of the Chinese government, a former aide to two New York governors is being accused of illegally profiteering off of the state's pandemic-era scramble for face masks. Linda Sun, who worked for Governors Andrew Cuomo and Kathy Hochul, both Democrats, and husband Chris Hugh, were indicted Wednesday on bribery and other charges in the alleged mask grift. When masks, gloves, and other protective supplies were hard to find, Sun abused her position of trust to steer contracts to her associates so that she and her husband could share in the profits. Oh, hail, Darth Angel Shadows. How you doing tonight? Okay. Marquand, how you doing? Hochul is Nixon-like. Well, I personally don't think Nixon did anything wrong, but that's, I don't want to get into all that. Hold on one second. I'm going to do something here real quick. I forgot. There we go. Well, that sucks. People keep breaking stuff. You're working late. Hey, Trumpinator, how you doing? Good to see you. Glad you're here. So when masks and gloves and other protective supplies were hard to find, Sun abused her position of trust to steer contracts to her associates so that her and her husband could share in the profits. Brooklyn-based U.S. Attorney Joseph Nacella Jr. said in a statement Thursday, the couple is due to answer those charges in court Monday, and Sun's lawyer said she will vigorously contest the allegations. Oh, I wonder how they're going to do that. Vigorously contest them. The newest allegations continue the government's trend of making and publicizing feverish accusations unmoored from the facts and evidence that we expect will actually come out of trial, Attorney Jared Schaefer said. A message seeking comment sent to whose attorney? Hello, Catherine K. How you doing? Hello, Darth Kitty. The couple already pleaded not guilty to the earlier charges of subtly using Sun's state jobs to advance Chinese government perspectives. Oh, this is crazy. See how they're trying to couch the terms, or they subtly used their position to advance the Chinese government perspectives. Subtly? I mean, did they or didn't they? Because it doesn't matter how subtle you were about it. If you were doing it, you're breaking a law. That's like saying they subtly murdered somebody. They did it very subtly. They didn't make a big deal out of it. Yeah. So They use their state jobs to advance Chinese government perspectives and priorities in exchange for lucrative financial benefits. A trial is set for November. Yeah, I agree pretty much. Life is indifferent. All government officials abuse their position of trust during COVID. I agree. I concur, as they say. With the new charges, the case now weaves together two significant threads that federal prosecutors have been pulling in recent years: pandemic fraud and rooting out alleged covert agents for China and other countries. The new indictment accuses Sun Hu of reaping millions in kickbacks by exploiting her role on a Cuomo administration team that procured much-needed personal protective equipment in the spring of 2020 as COVID-19 pandemic was taking hold. At the time, New York was a hotspot for the virus, and like other U.S. states and other nations, was scouring the globe for masks and other supplies. So that's them, two of them. A naturalized U.S. citizen born in China, Sun used her homeland ties to help New York wrangle PPE from the country where much of it is made, even as exports had dwindled because of China's own battle with the virus. Sun connected the state with vendors the Chinese government recommended, but according to the indictment, she also forged documents to falsely claim that Chinese contacts had suggested two additional companies. One was run by a second cousin of Sun, the other by a business associate of her husband, the indictment says. Sun didn't disclose those relationships to the New York government, which signed contracts with both companies in March 2020 and went on to pay them over $44 million in all, according to the indictment. The cousin funneled about $2.3 million back to Hu, the indictment said. It doesn't specify whether Hu's associate allegedly paid anything. Hu worked in state government for about 15 years, starting in Cuomo's administration, eventually working for his successor, incumbent Kathy Hochul. Hochul's administration has said it fired Sun in 2023 after discovering evidence of misconduct. Cuomo got national attention in 2020 for his daily pandemic briefings. He has since faced and vociferously contested criticism and congressional and federal Justice Department inquiries about his administration's handling of the virus in nursing homes. Well, it killed a lot of elderly people, it seems. After resigning amid sexual harassment allegations in 2021, he conceded a Democratic primary race for New York's mayor this week. A message seeking comment on the new charges against Sun was sent to Cuomo's spokesperson. He has previously said Cuomo very rarely interacted with her. Sun is also accused of quietly doing the Chinese government's bidding. See how they keep saying quietly doing, subtly doing? What is going on here? Banishing any mention of Chinese human rights issues from Hochul's video celebrating the Lunar New Year. In return for Sun's efforts on China's behalf, prosecutors allege, Hu got assistance with business ventures in China. Prosecutors said the financial boost helped the couple buy multi-million-dollar properties and luxury cars. Well, that's the end of that story. Let's see here. We're gonna do this one. We'll read this other. Let's see what the New York Post has to say about the same story. Ex-Hochul and Cuomo aides accused of working as Chinese foreign agents slapped with new bribery charges. I'm trying something new to make it appear bigger, so I'm doing like a whole screen. I got to go back and forth, so it'll take. A former top aide to Governor Kathy Hochul and ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo, who allegedly worked as a Chinese foreign agent, was hit with more federal charges Wednesday tied to a COVID-era kickback scheme worth millions of dollars. Linda Sun and husband Chris Hu allegedly made off with as much as $8 million in wide-scale fraud after she facilitated multiple contracts between New York State and two Chinese-based vendors for pandemic equipment, according to the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. One of the companies was run by Hu, 40, and his business partner, and the other was operated by Sun's second cousin, but the staffer never disclosed the personal ties, according to the prosecutors. Hey, thanks, Steve. Thanks for being here. Yeah, was it more subtle than what Swalwell did with Fang Tang? I hope somebody starts rolling over on somebody so we can get to the bottom of some of this stuff. That would be my hope. I don't know. Does he look a lot older than her? She almost looks like a Fang Fang, and he looks like an older. It's weird, right? Let's see. Sun 41 even allegedly doctored documents that showed the two companies were recommended by Chinese officials. Her husband is accused of keeping track of the expected ill-gotten proceeds on a spreadsheet under the title "Me." Well, that's a good way to keep track. Me, my money, my money. U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Joseph Nacella, assailed Sun of Manhasset for enriching herself when the state was at its most vulnerable at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. When masks, gloves, and other protective supplies were hard to find, Sun abused her position of trust to steer contracts to her associates so that she and her husband could share in the profits, he said in a statement. A lawyer for Sun said his client vehemently denied Thursday's charges. The new allegations continue the government's trend of making and publicizing feverish accusations on morphine effects. Oh, yeah, we read that. When the pandemic first engulfed New York, Sun was part of a group of officials tasked with obtaining personal protective equipment, and used her influence to work with the Chinese government to get the much-needed items. Well, I mean, you have to wonder if she has influence with the Chinese government. You got to wonder why. Why? The Jiangsu Department of Commerce recommended 4 Chinese vendors to state officials for supplies on March 20th, but Sun allegedly meddled with the document by replacing the first 2 suggested businesses with her cousin's company, prosecutors say. Oh, hey, J.H. Smallback. Thanks. I'm trying to make up for last night for leaving early, and then, like I said, I put a goal in the chat if anybody wants me to go longer than 2 hours. It's just a small goal to go longer, but we'll see. We'll probably go anyway. So just a little game I'm playing with myself. She also allegedly inserted the word that claimed her relative's company's surgical masks were the gold standard in an altered email. Oh, well, that's a good thing. She helped her hubby's company by claiming in a state document it was referred to by the Chinese Chamber of Commerce. The Cousins Company funneled $2.3 million in 2020 and 2021 in kickbacks to the indicted couple, according to a spreadsheet kept on her personal computer, according to prosecutors. The spreadsheet kept by Hugh estimated the couple expected to clinch as much as $8.02 million from the two companies in the alleged plot, prosecutors said. The alleged scheme not only created an unearned and undisclosed benefit for the defendants and their relatives, but it also exploited the state's critical need for resources in a health crisis. FBI Assistant Director in Charge Christopher Rai said in a statement. She seems happy. Sun was arrested and initially charged in September with acting as a foreign agent to discreetly push Chinese interests in exchange for millions of dollars in bribes and other fancy perks like salted ducks. Salted ducks? What is salted ducks? Anybody have any clue what salted ducks are? Anybody know what salted ducks are? That seems something might be like, ooh, weird. Weird. Here. Okay. Salted ducks. Sounds like. Is that like Peking duck? Isn't that like a roast duck? Isn't that really good? Anyway, he was also arrested the same time as his wife and accused of laundering money by opening bank accounts in the name of a close relative, even though it was for his own use. The new charges against the couple include honest services wire fraud, conspiracy, and bribery. They also face conspiracy to defraud the United States because the federal government doled out COVID funds to the state, and Hugh was slapped with a tax evasion charge because he allegedly didn't report the corrupt payments on his income taxes. Well, that's how they got. What's his face? They got Al Capone for not paying the taxes on his ill-gotten gains. Hochul's office previously said Sun was terminated in 2023 when the allegations of misconduct first surfaced. While Americans were locked down, desperate for PPE, and relying on their government to do the right thing, Linda Sun and Chris Hugh allegedly used that moment of crisis to enrich themselves, and worse, they did so while serving the interests of the Chinese Communist Party, FBI Director Kash Patel said in a statement. This is corruption at the highest level and endangering lives. Our FBI will not tolerate foreign influence or public officials who sell out their country for a payout. So does that mean they're going to start looking into the Bidens? Because, just saying, a lot of corruption there with the Bidens. The arraignment for the new charges against Sun and Hugh are scheduled for Monday. A lawyer for Hugh did not immediately respond for comment. So that's that story. And then we do have this, which we can. This is just the Former high-ranking New York State government official charged with acting as undisclosed agent of People's Republic of China and the Chinese Communist Party. So this is the original thing coming. It's the original thing from back in September 2024. So it says, defendant engaged in political activities in the interest of the CCP with her husband, her co-defendant husband, conspired to launder the proceeds of their unlawful activities. Oh, okay. So here we go. So it says, our AI overlord says salted duck is a classic Chinese dish, particularly famous in Nanjing. It involves marinating a duck in a brine solution, often with spices like Sichuan peppercorns, ginger, and star anise, and poaching it. The result is a tender, savory duck meat with a subtle, salty flavor. Now I'm hungry. Daily JH Wells says, what's the goal? Do I need to stand on one foot and sing about the big, beautiful bill in the style of ABBA? Well, that would be fantastic. I love ABBA. Dancing Queen, J.H. Swalbeck's a dancing queen, young and sweet, only 17. Is that the song? I think, or did I hope so? Anyway, but no, I just, last night, okay, JH, let's explain it again. Last night, my grandson woke up, and so I had to shut the stream off, so I had like, I don't know, 12 or 13 tabs yet to go through, so I was going to do a stream tonight just to cover those. And then I had a whole bunch of other stuff that I found today, more stories today, and so I figured I would say if anyone wanted me to go longer than 2 hours, maybe they could do the goal, and then I would go longer than 2 hours. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. Just I don't know. I feel dirty asking for, like, doing that, but everybody does it, so why not me? Earlier today in federal court in Brooklyn, an indictment was unsealed charging Linda Sun with violating and conspiring to violate Foreign Agent Registration Act. Oh, see, and I messaged Joe and I asked him if he was going to go live, and he never got back to me. I think Joe's mad at me or something. Whatever. It is what it is. It is what it is. So we'll see. I'll probably only go 2 hours then, especially that way I'll just go bother Joe. So it says violate foreign agents, the FARA Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering. Sun is allegedly to have acted on behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, the PRC, and the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. Sun's husband and co-defendant Chris Hu was also charged with money laundering conspiracy, as well as conspiracy to commit bank fraud and misuse of means of identification. Sun and Hu were arrested this morning and are scheduled to be arraigned later today before U.S. Magistrate Judge Peggy Kyo. What? Wait, so the judge is a Chinese person too? Odd, right? Breon Peace, United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. Matthew G. Olson, Assistant Attorney General of the Justice Department's National Security Division. Christy M. Curtis, Acting Director, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to go with that. As alleged, while appearing to serve the people of New York as Deputy Chief of Staff within the New York State Executive Chamber, the defendant and her husband actually worked to further the interests of the Chinese government and the CCP, said the United States Attorney, Breon Peace. The illicit scheme enriched the defendant's family to the tune of millions of dollars. Our office will act decisively to prosecute those who serve as undisclosed agents as the foreign government. Mr. Peace expressed his appreciation to the Department of Justice National Security Division. Linda Sue, a New York State government employee, acts as undisclosed agent while her husband, Christopher Hu, facilitated transfer of $1 million in kickbacks for personal gain. Sun wielded her position of influence among executives to covertly promote the PRC and CCP agendas, directly threatening our country's national security. The FBI is committed to protect the American people from any threat actors who seek to influence officials at the direction of foreign entities, stated FBI Acting Assistant Director Curtis. Sun is alleged to be an undisclosed agent of the PRC and CCP using Chinese money and her influence within the state of New York to benefit the Chinese government. Sun and her husband then laundered millions of dollars for the foreign country and used the monetary benefits of the scheme to buy luxury vehicles and $1 million properties and millions of dollars of properties here in New York is what it should say. Thomas M. Fatarusso, special agent in charge of the IRS-CI in New York, is with the unwavering determination of the federal government It should say what the goal is, J.H. Swalback. Thank you very much, J.H. Swalback, for $25. But it should say in the goal what the thing is, unless I did something wrong. Anyway, I greatly appreciate the $25. It's extremely generous. Thank you very much. It says again, what's the goal? Money, sex, drugs? Here's some. You buy the rest. Oh, I get it. So money, sex, drugs. So here's the money, and I got to buy the sex and drugs. Cool. As alleged in the indictment, while working alleged in the indictment while working for the New York State government, including in its high-ranking post, the Executive Chamber of New York government and multiple state agencies, Sun also acted as an undisclosed agent of the PRC and CCP, acting at the request of the PRC. Government officials and CCP officers. Sun engaged in numerous political activities in the interest of the PRC, including blocking representatives of the Taiwanese government from having access to high-level New York State officers, changing high-level New York State officers' messaging regarding issues of importance to the PRC and CCP, obtaining official New York State proclamations for the PRC government representatives without proper authorization, attempting to facilitate a trip to the PRC by a high-level New York politician, arranging meetings for visiting delegations from the PRC with the New York State government. I wonder if these people were part of the, hey, Netcat Media, how you doing? I wonder if these people, were involved with those police stations that they busted in New York. Because the PRC and the CCP had police stations in New York. I wonder if it's, if they're having anything to do with that. Let's say. So, Sun's unauthorized invitation letters for PRC government delegation constituted false statements made in connection with immigration documents and induced the foreign citizens into unlawfully entering the United States. Oof. Sun never registered as a foreign agent with the Attorney General and, in fact, actively concealed that she took actions at the order, request, or direction of the PRC government and CCP representatives. In return for these and other actions, Sun received substantial economic and other benefits from the representatives of PRC government and CCP. Wow. Mm-hmm. Including the facilitation of millions of dollars in transactions for the PRC-based business activities of Hugh, travel benefits, tickets to events, promotion of a close family's business, employment for Sun's cousin in the PRC, and there it is, Nanjing-style salted ducks prepared by a PAC government official's personal chef that were delivered to the residence of Sun's parents. So it was like a special chef, like a... Sun and Hugh laundered the monetary proceeds of the scheme to purchase, among other things, real estate property in Manhasset, New York, currently valued at $4.1 million, a condominium in Honolulu, Hawaii, currently valued at $2.1 million, and various luxury automobiles, including a 2024 Ferrari. Hey, I like Ferraris. Sun never disclosed any benefits she received from representatives of the PRC government to the CCP to the New York State government, as she was required to do as a New York State government employee. Hugh also laundered the unlawful proceeds through bank accounts opened in the name of a close relative that were actually for Hugh's exclusive use. To open these accounts, Hugh unlawfully used an image of the relative's driver's license. The charges in the indictment are allegations, and the defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The government's case to be handled by the Office of National Security and Cybercrime Section. Assistant United States Attorney Alexander Solomon and Patrick Pollock are in charge of prosecution. Trial attorney Scott Claffey, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so Linda Sun is 40. Wow, wait a minute. So she's actually younger than him. Holy crap. Holy crap. Wow. I can't believe that. Linda's son is 41 and Chris Hughes 40. Dude looked like he was 20 years older than her. That's crazy. Wow. So, okay, so we're going to go to the next story, which is about Canada. All right. So here we go. Story number 2. Or this is story 2 or story 3? I can't remember. Anyway, whatever. It's the next story. Oh, Canada. What is really going on in Canada? It just levied $2 billion in retroactive taxes on American tech companies, while it is giving China $1 billion to help it compete with Canadian shipbuilders. Earlier this year, it executed 4 Canadian nationals and levied billions in tariffs between 25 and 100%. You'd think Canada would be a lot nicer to the U.S. than China. The only thing I can think of is that its leaders are under Chinese control. This year, China executed 4 Canadian nationals on trumped up drug charges. It then levied billions in tariffs between 25 and 100% on Canadian exports, including canola, peas, pork, and aquatic products. Meanwhile, Canada taxpayers are being forced to pay for a $1 billion loan to The British Columbia ferries for Chinese-built ferries to compete with Canadian shipbuilders. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Wow, 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 wow. That's nuts, right? That's nuts. That's nuts. That's nuts, nuts, nuts. Oh, Canada. President Trump halted trade negotiations with Canada and imposed new tariffs in response to Canada's $2 billion retroactive tax on U.S. tech firms. Secretary Bessent launched a Section 301 investigation into Canada's digital services tax, a significant move. Canada's actions are self-defeating. In response to Canada's decision to levy a $2 billion retroactive digital services tax on American tech companies, Trump has ended trade talks, announced that new tariffs will be levied, and they're opening this thing. So let's see what he has to say here.
Well, we knew it was coming. We hoped they wouldn't do it. Canada has this digital services tax, and several other countries do too. We disagree, and we think that they discriminate against U.S. companies. But what Canada did here, as of Monday, they're going to implement a retroactive tax. And we think that we don't like the taxes, and obviously we think it's patently unfair to do it retroactive. This was something from the Trudeau years, so we were hoping as a sign of goodwill that the new Carney administration would at least put a break on that during the trade talks. They seem not to have. President Trump has responded, and my inclination is that Ambassador Greer over at USTR will be starting a 301 investigation into the digital services taxes to determine the amount of harm to the U.S. companies and the U.S. economy in general.
Why is a Section 301 investigation the way to go, and what could that outcome potentially yield? Would that be broad-based, looking at Canada and the possibility of tariffs, or very targeted on certain industries?
Well, no, the president can impose tariffs based on IEEPA, which is an Emergency Economic Powers Act. The 301 is more durable and could last longer.
So in terms of 301 being more durable and lasting longer, would this be more broad-based, looking across trade of goods and services with Canada more broadly, or would it be more targeted to certain industries?
No, it would be targeted across tariffs on Canadian products. And, you know, again, we'll have to see. We know the amount. I think it's about $2 billion of retroactive digital taxes, which seem patently unfair. We had been talking to the administration in Ottawa about this, and they decided to go ahead with it.
What do you guys think about that? Do you think, I mean, it seems like Canada keeps messing with us. Like they keep doing stuff on purpose, try and start like a trade war with us. I mean, this type of tax that they're trying to do on digital services, like they basically want to put a tax on anybody like YouTube or Netflix or any of these companies that send stuff over the internet to Canada. They want to tax, like it's nuts. It's like the same thing that commie that wants to be governor or mayor of New York City wants to do, is like basically anybody who does any business with New York. Like if you sell something to someone in New York, they want to tax you like as your business. Like it's nuts. I don't think it's, I don't think that they should be able to do this. I want to pull this up real quick because I saw this. I want to say something to Trumpinator. It says, Jim, when I get some money soon, I'm going to become a supporter. You put in the work and I value you. Well, I value you too. I value all the people who watch my show. And I don't want anybody to give anything that they can't afford to do. I'm happy with people just coming and watching and commenting and talking and participating and stuff. Nobody is required to give money or be a supporter in any way. Everyone is treated all the same. And I appreciate you just being here and being a fan and appreciating the fact that I'm just here trying to tell people what I think and tell them the news. That's all. And I agree. I think Canada is nefarious, and I do think Carney is a communist. Yeah, the Trump administration needs to crush Canada with the tariffs or sanctions. they will be begging to be the 51st state by the midterms. You attack America, you feel the pain. Yeah, I think that they're going to have to. I think they're going to something's going to have to happen. On the same note, the next story is kind of on the same lines of stuff that's going on. With the world is free speech is in free fall in Europe, and EU censors are trying to globalize their reach. If America wants to see what awaits down the road, they need only to look at Germany this month. So, I appreciate you too, Terry. Thank you very much. So yeah, so there's been a lot of crazy stuff. Yeah, so like this is the stuff they're saying, like digital arsonists must not be able to hide behind their phones or computers. Anyone who thinks anything is allowed on social media is seriously mistaken. These people are. Yeah, I understand Trumpinator, and I kind of agree. I do agree, but I'm trying to just build an audience and build a thing. So I don't, I appreciate anybody who gives money. I think it's great. Anybody who's a subscriber, anyone who's a paid member is awesome. But I'm a small channel and I'm just growing and stuff. So I don't expect everyone to just throw money at me. This is not, I'm trying to do more and more. And so the more I do, I would think more, I get bigger audience, keep growing and just keep going. That's all. So here we go. So German police conduct nationwide crackdown on citizens accused of online speech crimes. Yeah. Oh, we'll go back to Canada here. Yeah. There is a separatist independence movement in Western Canada. I think it's Alberta, right? Alberta. They want to get out and get out of Canada. They want to separate. They want to come into America, which, Canada's pretty big. And honestly, we wouldn't, some of the areas of Canada, we wouldn't really, I don't know. Taking Canada wouldn't be if Canada did become part of the United States, it would not be the 51st state. It would be multiple states. It's too big to be one state. Would probably be like at least 5 or 6 states, maybe more. It's just like the people that say like, oh, Mexico should be part of the United States. Well, there's already 13 states in Mexico, so that would add 13 states to the United States. So that's all. I don't know. I'm more interested in Greenland. I think Greenland should be part of the United States than to worry about Canada. Let Canada do what they want. Greenland is where it's at. Greenland's got a lot of natural resources. It's very strategically placed. It's very necessary. So if Greenland doesn't become part of the United States at a bare minimum, there should be some kind of a deal for us to be. We already have bases on Greenland, but there should be some kind of arrangements made. This month, the German Federal Criminal Police Office, BKA, conducted a nationwide search for citizens accused of committing speech crimes. The annual crackdown is part of Germany's robust censorship and speech criminalization policies. As European Union censors seek to expand the reach of laws like the Digital Service Acts, the DSA, the DSA is part of the thing that the EU and them are using to go after Twitter, to go after Elon Musk. They're trying to fine him because they won't stop speech and stuff. Like, our government needs to push back hard. They need to say, hey, listen, these are American companies. We have free speech in America. If you don't like it, and we shouldn't even be like, if these countries don't want to have like the basic tenet of free speech and they don't want to support it, why are we even allied with them? They don't. That's not countries that we should be aligned with. They don't represent our values. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all Americans need to see the existential threat to our most indispensable right, definitely. We have discussed how Germany is extending its criminalization of speech onto the internet. Germany imposed a legal regime that would allow fining social networks such as Facebook up to 500,000 euros for each day the platform leaves a fake news story up without deleting it. So this is a problem. Like, we've got our country under control. We're starting to get the government to stop screwing with us online. But now they've got all these other countries doing it, and it's the same people, basically USAID, and the same people that were behind it here are doing it all over the world now. So you know, it's crazy. The country fined YouTube to force the company to remove views the government considered disinformation on COVID-19. Definitely. Germany has also targeted Elon Musk with threatened prosecution if he does not reestablish censorship systems on X. None of this, mind you, has put a dent in the ranks of the actual fascists or haters. Neo-Nazis are holding massive rallies by adopting new symbols and coded words, while Germany arrested a man on a train because he had a Hitler ringtone on his phone. What is a Hitler ringtone? Now I'm interested. What is a Hitler ringtone? I don't even know. Should I Google that? What is a Hitler ringtone? Last year, Interior Minister Nancy Faeser was upset that civil libertarians were calling her anti-free speech, so she tried to shut down a publication for a satirical meme. Yeah, I do have a lot of shorts, Steve Hillard. I do put out a lot of shorts. For this reason, it was fitting that the recent World Forum was held in Berlin. I spoke in Berlin at the World Forum, where European leaders gathered in one of the most strikingly anti-free speech conferences I have attended. This year's forum embraced the slogan, "A New World Order for European Values." Isn't it odd, though? Oh, maybe the Kanye song. You could be right, a Tor fan. It could be the Kanye song. You know, it's weird. Like the European values that they're adopting seems like the same European values that were coming out of Germany in the 1930s. That New World Order is based on an aggressive anti-free speech platform that has been enforced for years by the European Union. It is vividly evident in the latest crackdown in Germany. According to the BKA, there were 10,732 crimes related to online hate speech committed last year, a record number and 4 times the crimes from 2021. It's an example of the insatiable appetite created by censorship as people seek to silence their critics or those with opposing views. Stefan Niehoff, a 64-year-old former Bundeswehr sergeant, was convicted for posting satirical images involving Nazi imagery. While the criminal case was eventually dropped, he was fined because a judge failed to find his actions sufficiently satirical. So if you're not funny enough, they'll fine you, I guess. Yeah, it's like that meme, you know, with the astronaut, and he's out in space, and the guy's in front of him, and he's like, yeah, he said they were always socialists. Yeah. North Rhine-Westphalia Interior Minister Christian Democrat Herbert Reul seemed to relish the power. Digital arsonists must not be able to hide behind their phones or computers. Anyone who thinks anything is allowed on social media is seriously mistaken. He added that people have forgotten the difference between hate and opinion. For those who cannot tell the difference, the solution is just to stay silent or risk a knock on the door. It's very chilling. It is the very chilling effect reflected in the recent polling, showing that most Germans are now uncomfortable sharing their views in public. According to a poll of German citizens, only 18% of Germans feel free to express their opinions in public. 59% of Germans did not even feel free to express themselves in private among friends, and just 17% felt free to express themselves online. This is why some of us have praised Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio for their stand against European censorship. Free speech is in free fall in Europe, and the EU censors are trying to globalize their reach, including pressuring American companies to censor citizens. They are receiving the support of leading American politicians and pundits. If Americans want to see what awaits down this road, they only need to look at Germany this month. You know, it's great, yeah, because there's a lot of politicians that are actually all for what's going on over there, and they want to bring it here. So I don't know. We should really be careful with that. So all right, we're gonna change topics now to some news out of what was happening in LA this weekend. The lawlessness. Several stores looted by mobs in LA County over the weekend.
An intersection takeover in Bellflower. quickly turning into a burglary free-for-all. New video shows the moments overnight that things at the intersection of Woodruff and Artesia got out of control. In the surveillance video, you can see the gas station worker even try to dodge something thrown at him while he tries to hold off the people trying to storm his store. Those responsible hopping from a gas station to a beauty store, breaking into ATMs and cash registers. Then down the street off Del Amo and Paramount in Lakewood,
14, 15.
Another burglary around the same time, showing people breaking into a phone store and leaving behind a trail of destruction. Now the businesses that were hit are left to clean up.
Wow, that's crazy, right? That is crazy. How this stuff still keeps happening. You know, nice job, Gavin and Karen. Nice work, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. It's crazy. Total failures in every way. It is nuts, right? It is absolutely nuts. It's absolutely nuts that stuff is still going on. It's still going on, and I don't understand why it's acceptable. That's not how civilized society acts. And I just don't get it. I don't. Well, we're going to jump to another story here. This is like an ongoing thing that I've been seeing. I have a couple other stuff about this too. So I'm going to show this real quick. This is about AOC. It says AOC built her entire political brand on being the girl from the Bronx. But is that true? No, it's a lie. I traveled to AOC's actual hometown to investigate. It's safe, clean, patriotic, and wealthy. It's a slice of small-town American heaven. Here's where AOC is really from.
This is where AOC says she's from. And this is where AOC is actually from. Welcome to Yorktown, the business hamlet of Yorktown Heights. There's mansions everywhere. It's beautiful.
So this is where they say she's from, and I don't know. I have another thing. Let me get it real quick. Another thing to read about this. Pull it up. This is something. Yeah. So here's a great article I wanted to read in the Great AOC Origin Hoax Story Hoax. Identity is currency in the Democratic Party. Like any currency, it can be inflated, debased, or counterfeited. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has built a formidable political brand as a tough, working-class girl from the Bronx. That narrative, repeated with theatrical fervor, has helped her win elections, dominate media cycles, and posture as a streetwise crusader for the downtrodden. But what if it's all an elaborate performance? What if AOC's tale of urban grit is a carefully curated mirage crafted in the suburbs and sold to an audience too credulous or too compliant to ask basic questions? That question is no longer speculative. It was recently answered by independent journalist Benny Johnson. That was the video we were watching, who exposed the full extent of AOC's biographical fabrication in a detailed on-site video report published on his YouTube channel. Yeah. Obama was also fake too, but if I'm not mistaken, I could swear this was pretty much known before, that AOC answered, was like a call, almost like a call for actors, like a call they put out, and she answered it like they do for movie roles and stuff. If I'm not mistaken. Johnson's investigation, which has since gone viral, includes footage of AOC's suburban childhood home interviews with locals and former classmates, and a damning contrast between her manufactured Bronx persona and a pristine reality of Yorktown Heights. AOC's career in politics began as artificially as her Bronx origin story. It did not rise organically from grassroots activism or civic involvement, but rather through a curated audition process conducted by Justice Democrats. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. It was like an audition, Justice Democrats. A political action committee co-founded by Saket Chakrabarty, Zach Exley, Corbin Trent, Kyle Kulinski, and Cenk Uygur. Their stated goal was to recruit and run a new generation of progressive candidates in safe Democrat districts. But this was not an open Democrat endeavor. It was an ideological casting call. Yeah. The group received over 10,000 applications for prospective candidates. Each submission required a detailed statement about the candidate's lived experience, a term that serves as a modern stand-in for authenticity. It was through this filter that Sandy Cortez transformed again. In her audition materials, she emphasized her Bronx background. She did not disclose that she had grown up in the upper-class community of Yorktown Heights. There is no evidence that Chakrabarty or Exley knew at the outset that the Bronx heroine was actually a theater kid from a manicured suburb. What they saw on tape was a young, attractive, articulate woman who appeared to represent the struggles they wanted to elevate. It was enough. Ocasio-Cortez submitted a videotaped audition that leaned heavily on her aesthetic appeal and her carefully edited personal narrative. She knew what they were looking for, and she played the part perfectly. That tape, more than any resume or record of public service, secured her spot as one of the up-and-coming stars of the left. She was then sent to 4 in-person candidate conferences across the country. The first was held in Kentucky. There, AOC received intensive media training, messaging strategy, and campaign process education. While technically still part of the vetting phase, insiders report that Justice Democrats made clear to her that she had the job if she wanted it. She had passed the test. At that point, the process shifted to recruitment mode. The team's goals. Okay. Thank you very much, J.A. Schwalbeck, for another $10. Asking for support is a virtue, not something to be ashamed of. Mercedes-Benz charges more because they give more. Tell people what you want. You deserve support. I understand that. It just feels, I don't know. I haven't got into the grift thing and asking. I don't know. You know, I know people do it and they do the stuff. I'm trying to like slowly get into that. I just, I mean, sure, I would love to do this, every day and talk to people every day and tell them the news and talk about stuff and get to know people. And, but we'll just need to grow first and then go from there. So the team's goal was to ensure that she stayed engaged and to begin preparing her public launch. Snorum says, make a comic book, you'll learn how to grift. Well, I can't draw. I could probably write a comic book, but I don't know. I don't know. During that time, there was little doubt that the organization has learned the full details of her suburban upbringing. The deception was no longer a secret, but rather than start over, they decided to roll the dice. They opted to protect the myth. After all, in politics, narratives is everything. Pretty much is, right? Narratives is everything in politics. Thus began a coordinated effort to defraud the voters of New York's 14th Congressional District, and by extension, the American people. AOC would continue to peddle the Bronx persona, the streetwise syntax, the underdog origin story, and the media, desperate for a new leftist icon, would oblige her with fawning coverage and zero scrutiny. I think, didn't she also go to Brown University or something like that, which is like an Ivy League school? So she's not like just up. I don't get it. So, yes. Oh, well, thank you, Tora fan. I really appreciate it to say that I have a face for radio. That's just great. So should I do this? Then will this be better if I did this? My time is valuable. Thanks. Support is the thanks, not a grift. Well, I appreciate that. I'll try to do better. The Justice Democrats wanted a symbol, not a statesman. They wanted an avatar of progressive grievance, not a legislator forged in policy and public service. In Sandy Cortez, they found an empty vessel with just the right aesthetics and just enough ideological pliability to serve their aims. Public should understand what this means. AOC is not a spontaneous product of democratic enthusiasm. She is a manufactured product of political audition wrapped up in a lie and launched into prominence by a group that saw deception as a feature, not a bug. Her entire brand, from her Bronx backstory to her populist flair, is synthetic. The voter never really chose her. She was chosen. And that should chill anyone who still believes representative government must be rooted in truth. This is the central lie of her political life. She is not from the Bronx, at least not in the way she insists. From infancy to adulthood, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or rather Sandy Cortez as she was known, lived not in a cramped apartment in the dense city borough, but in a sprawling home in Yorktown Heights, a leafy, affluent hamlet in Westchester County. There she enjoyed manicured lawns, colonial-style homes, clean parks, low crime, and the quiet predictability of suburban comfort. Yeah, I understand. It's like tips. Not many ask. It's a gratuity. Yeah, I see some of these shows that the people that do the stuff, and it's like they're begging, e-begging. I never want to do that. If I ever turn into that, I hope people tell me to go away and shut off the computer, because that's not. I find that distasteful. The people are like, "Give me the money here. Give me the money. Give me." I find that distasteful. I don't know. The median income in Yorktown Heights hovers well above the national average. Its streets are dotted with American flags and Revolutionary War monuments. It boasts veteran circles, farmers markets, and a school district ranked among the best in the state. Yorktown Heights is, in many ways, a portrait of the America AOC now spends her days attacking. And therein lies the rub. To launch her political career, Sandy from Yorktown had to become someone else. She had to become AOC from the Bronx. That transformation began in 2018 when she ran a surprise primary challenge against Congressman Joe Crowley. She cast Crowley as an interloper, an outsider, a man who doesn't drink our water and doesn't send his kids to our schools. The insinuation was clear. He wasn't from here, and she was. Her campaign leaned hard on that identity play, using it to position her as an authentic daughter of the Bronx against an out-of-touch white man with party connections. But here's the problem. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez left the Bronx when she was a toddler. Her father, a successful architect, moved the family to Westchester to give his children better opportunities. She attended Yorktown Public Schools, graduated from Yorktown High, and went on to earn a degree from Boston University. So Boston University. The family home was recently valued near $500,000. Nothing about this trajectory resembles the hardship narrative she routinely invokes. To say she represents the Bronx is one thing. To claim it as a crucible to her identity as the forge that shaped her worldview and voice is something else entirely. When she repeats ad nauseum that she is just a girl from the Bronx, it becomes clear that the phrase is not an expression of origin, but a mantra of marketing. It is branding, not biography. What does this matter? One might argue that plenty of politicians embellish their resume or amplify the relatable moments. Yeah, like Joe Biden tries to say that he was from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm just Joe from Scranton, even though he's lived in Delaware his entire life. Because he was born in Scranton and lived there until he was like 2 or 3 or something. His family moved out of there to Delaware, but whatever. But AOC has made her supposed upbringing central to her political identity. She positions herself as a voice of the marginalized precisely because of her claimed experience. She asserts credibility on urban poverty, racial justice, and working class struggles because she wants you to believe she lived them. Yet in Yorktown, people remember Sandy Cortez. They remember her as a theater kid, not a political radical. She was by all accounts bright, social, and upwardly mobile. Her high school peers recall someone more interested in school plays than socialism, and herein lies the crucial piece of the puzzle. Sandy used her theater experience, her acting chops, to step into the role of a Bronx girl and progressive crusader. The accent, the cadence, the carefully curated indignation, all of it is rehearsed. As one local firefighter put it, she was mean, she was a bully, everyone knew her, she was always around. We don't know what happened. What happened is performance. AOC went to college, got radicalized, and returned with a new story. In the age of curated online personas and TikTok politics, it's perhaps unsurprising that someone would reinvent themselves so thoroughly. But the ethical stakes are higher for elected officials. To manufacture a background in order to wield moral authority is not merely spin; it is fraud. Thank you, Terry, very much. It's greatly appreciated. Imagine if a Republican congressman falsely claimed to have grown up in a rough urban neighborhood to win votes. Imagine if he faked an accent, changed his name, and repeatedly attacked others for not sharing his supposedly authentic roots. The media would have a field day, and rightly so. That the drive-by media has largely ignored AOC's biographical sleight of hand is a testament to the protection racket that surrounds progressive icons. This isn't about geography, it's about authenticity. In our current climate, identity is used as a political weapon. Democrats argue, often with venom, that people outside certain demographics cannot understand, much less represent those groups. AOC has leaned into this argument more aggressively than most. She invokes her supposed Bronx roots to deflect criticism, shut down debate, and bolster her own credibility. But if these roots are a fiction, then the authority she claims for them is illegitimate. To those who say she technically was born in the Bronx, let's respond with a philosophical clarity. A single birth certificate does not confer identity. If identity is shaped by environment, experience, and formation, then Sandy Cortez of Yorktown Heights is not a Bronx girl in any meaningful sense. She is at best a suburban transplant who returned to the borough as a political opportunist. More disturbingly, her anti-American rhetoric, her loathing of capitalism, and her climate fanaticism are all kind of rebellion against its very blessings her hometown bestowed. Yorktown Heights is not a dystopia. It's not plagued by crime, graffiti, or systemic oppression. It is a safe, beautiful, patriotic American suburb. The fact that AOC can look at such a place and emerge convinced that America is broken reveals kind of psychological distortion, not only uncommon among the overeducated radicals, not uncommon among overeducated radicals of her generation. The lesson here is not merely about AOC, but about our politics more broadly. We are living in an era when the grievance is currency, victimhood is valor, and authenticity is simulated. Politicians are no longer rewarded for what they build, but for how convincingly they can broadcast struggle. AOC is an avatar of this new political theater, and her Bronx Mirage is a centerpiece of that act. The electorate deserves honesty, not polished narratives, not campaign trail cosplay, but real transparency. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has the right to her beliefs, misguided though they may be, but she does not have the right to reinvent herself and then attack others for failing to live up to her fictional origin story. Until she acknowledges the reality of her upbringing, every slogan, every speech, every teary-eyed monologue about struggle and justice should be viewed with the skepticism it richly deserves. Yeah, every time she goes and cries by a fence nowhere near anything and pretends something when it's like no one around, this should just be taken for what it is. She's an actress. She's an actress. The Bronx did not make her, Yorktown Heights did, and in her persistent denial of that fact, we can see truth, not about where she's from, but who she really is. Wow, that was great. That was great. That was great. We're going to watch a little bit more of this this thing from...
It's green, it's pristine, it's clean, and they even have a Christopher Columbus Society. I thought AOC got all those statues ripped down. Some structural racism right here in AOC's hometown. Today we're going to investigate the biggest lie in all of politics, the fraud of AOC. Let's go.
Democrat opponent as not being sufficiently from the Bronx.
That a Democrat who takes corporate money, doesn't live here, doesn't send his kids to our schools, doesn't drink our water, cannot possibly represent us.
AOC reflexively repeats that she's from the Bronx and a Bronx girl.
I speak like a girl from the block.
And again.
I grew up first generation in the Bronx.
And again.
Girls from the Bronx are welcome everywhere.
So often that it's almost a pathology. In fact, AOC just pulled the Bronx girl card again this week, responding to President Trump, saying she would eat a Queens boy like Donald Trump for breakfast.
I don't think he knows how to deal with a girl from the Bronx.
Something's very wrong here. What functional adult repeats where they're from this often? Someone who's lying. And here's the dirty little secret. AOC is not actually from the Bronx. Since AOC was an infant, her family has lived in a beautiful little hamlet called Yorktown Heights. This little town is the opposite of AOC's gritty, downtrodden, working-class persona. It's clean and beautiful and safe. The neighborhood that AOC grew up in is well off, leafy and manicured. AOC went to elementary, middle, and high school here. She graduated from Yorktown High where she went by the name Sandy Cortez. And then she graduated Boston University with an economics degree. Since AOC...
Oh, yeah, there's some new thing in YouTube that they're doing called ranking XP ranking. I don't know how it works exactly, but it does something where it ranks people. Wow, J.A. Schwalbach's got 1800 XP, whatever. That is insane. So it does something where it gives people points and stuff. So I don't know exactly how it works. I still don't understand it really, but it is what it is, and that's what. Yeah. So AOC, was doing all this crazy stuff.
Is about to run for president.
Look at her. Did you see that? She was pretending. That was when she was pretending to be arrested. But here she is. Here's Sandy.
She graduated Boston University with an economics degree. Since AOC is about to run for president, we thought it would be important to investigate.
You see that she didn't have her handcuffs on, even though she was pretending she was handcuffs. Let's see.
She grew up with the horse and buggy. That's what she wants us to go back to. Get it? You gotta think like her.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, so.
Not defunded there.
So basically, AOC is a fraud, and, the bottom line, I would suggest go watch the whole video over at Benny Johnson stuff if you want to see the whole video about AOC. But that article I read pretty much broke it down that she's a fraud. Everybody knows she's a fraud. So, that's pretty much all we could do. I want to change gears a little bit now. I'm going to switch to, before I do that, I forgot. It's after an hour, so I'd have to do this. It's over an hour now, so I'm going to cancel out the X and Facebook feeds. If anyone is watching on X, Twitter, or Facebook, come over to YouTube or Rumble. I only go on there for about an hour to try to get people to come to YouTube or Rumble. So if you're on X or Facebook, please come over to YouTube or Rumble. We're going to say goodbye to them right now. Okay. I just lost a whole bunch of viewers. Wow. That's odd. So we're going to switch to this. So this is, she's big mad at Portland Antifa. So.
Turn that shit! Turn that shit down! It's midnight! I will turn it down. I would love to. You just have to ask nice, and I'm being nice even though you're screaming at me. Fuck you! Okay. I'm coming back every night. I'm destroying and wrecking your shit. Turn it down. We the people need sleep. I've been out here 2 days straight. You're worse than what the fuck is this? You heard what I said, bitch. Talking to us calmly would be a hell of a lot better than. Go fuck yourself. Decolonize your fucking ass, bitch. Go fuck yourself, bro. I don't give a fuck. Stick that cane up your ass. Make it. Come on. I'm ready to go. The first domino falls. Fuck you. You know what happens? Jail. You know what happens when the first domino falls? Down. Don't get down.
They're going to come for you next. You know what happens when the first domino falls? These people are delusional. They all should be in mental hospitals.
I'm telling you to shut the fuck up. Hey, I'm sleeping.
Hey guys, let's let another neighbor talk. Let's let another neighbor talk.
Antifa fatigue, yeah. Antifa fatigue. So let's see. Yeah, so they've had it with Antifa. So organisms are one of the healthiest forms of stress release. So when I tell you to go F yourself, it's because I care. Oh, there you go.
Turn that shit down!
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so Annie Knows is Portland, June 2028. Turn that shit down. It's midnight. You're worse than ICE. A disabled black resident in the community terrorized by Antifa and the far left in the month-long rioting at ICE facility confronts them. Video by Katie Davenport. So the local resident who confronted Antifa in Portland has responded after video went viral. She's not backing down. When I called 911 last night, the operator said the other residents had also reported this terrorism. I ask you and your readers to please apply whatever pressure you can. We need the National Guard here in Portland. We need people. We need help. The people need help. Wow. So InfoWars wanted to get them to come on. So I wonder. So, to their credit, police did arrive a few hours after our calls. I know they're stretched 6 shootings in one day, but they need a constant presence until this protest violence ends. So that's crazy, right? That's just crazy stuff. That, like, you would think, I don't know, you would think the neighbors would maybe come together and push them out. You know, like, because I guarantee these people that are protesting the ICE facility don't live there. They're these weirdos coming from other places doing the stuff. So, you know, this lady probably, you know, has a job, needs to work, needs stuff to do, and, you know, they can't deal with this stuff. So, that is what it is. It's bad. So that was a story I thought was funny. Like she says, this marks day 21 of the occupation. I put records requests in with Portland police to find out how many noise disturbance complaints have been made since the occupation began. Yeah. She said, this lady saying she called and all this stuff. So that's terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Yeah. And so here's this next one. So Portland, for hours late into the night and morning, Antifa blasted noise into the residential area where the local ICE facility is. Residents have pleaded with them to let them sleep, but Antifa mock and abuse them.
This is the Federal Protective Service.
I'm gonna turn the volume down real quick. Because that was pretty annoying, that sound. But this is what they do. This is what they're doing. This is actually would be considered torture and a violation, like sleep deprivation, playing these loud noises under the UN Charter and stuff. This is considered torture. See, the federal agents can't do anything about the noise and stuff like that because it's a state law. I don't think they can enforce state laws. Maybe they can. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but I think actually they can. They can, any state law they can also enforce. Federal agent can use to enforce it, but they probably are just going to let the state go ahead and take care of it. Like there should be going in and stopping these people, disturbing the peace, whatever, something like that. You would think. So this is what that lady is dealing with every night. This is why she was going crazy, and this is the state is actually, what should happen in actuality is the federal government, the Department of Justice, the Civil Rights Division should be going after the state police and the city, whoever the local police and the local government for depriving the other citizens of their rights. Because what they're doing by allowing this to happen is it's actually infringing the rights of the other citizens. Uh-oh. They can't say that. That's not able to say that. So Portland's chaos is exactly why federal authority must be enforced. Antifa's deliberate disruption of residential areas near ICE facilities isn't activism, it's domestic terrorism. Residents pleading for basic peace while extremists weaponize noise and intimidation. That's not dissent, it's psychological warfare against civilians. DHS confirms a 500% spike in assault on ICE agents during these operations, with rioters using fireworks, knives, and explosives to target federal personnel. Secretary Noem's stance is clear: lay a hand on law enforcement, face full prosecution. Whether local leaders fail to protect citizens, the feds have no choice but to act. The National Guard's deployment in LA under Title X authority set the precedent. Portland's lawlessness demands the same resolve. No more coddling chaos. Secure the streets. That's right. Let's get it done. Yeah, this lady says, I know what it's like. This is from 2020 when they rioted outside an apartment for over 150 nights. Our shitty city government apparently did not learn one damn thing. I can't even find a number to leave Mr. Mayor Kay Wilson a voicemail. So this is a video from 2020 with the stuff that was going on back in 2020. Wow. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Crazy that this stuff is still going on. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right. Well, now we're going to jump to another story. We're going to keep moving. This one is about the lawsuits about birthright citizenship that have happened, which is something that I find funny because because the lawsuits against President Trump's birthright citizenship policy seek to class-wide status for children who have been born or will be born in the United States on or after February 19, 2025. Now, that's a very, very interesting phrase, or will be born. So they're seeking class-wide status for unborn babies. Think that through. Unborn. They're suing for rights for unborn babies. The left, the ACLU and them, are suing for rights for unborn babies. I don't know if they've thought this through, which means they are defending and representing unborn babies. Yeah. The left defends unborn babies. I tried, this link doesn't work for the story for Declassified Live. I tried to go through it. One new lawsuit filed by Norm Eisen actually said this: the executive order harms class members by calling it to doubt the citizenship of future newborns. If they're citizens, if they're saying that these unborn babies are citizens, that means they have rights to not die, to not be killed. They can't be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So this is going to get funny. Yeah, Trump would say, well, that's what they're going to try to argue. But if they certify a class, it's going to be hysterical because someone's going to be able to come and put piggyback on that class and say, well, you can't kill any. They're going to be able to sue like Planned Parenthood and all the abortion providers and say, we can't kill any of these unborn babies because they're in the class. All unborn babies are in the class. Get it? Yeah, if states didn't have standing in the 2020 election, unborn babies don't have standing regarding citizenship. Well, it's funny. How does anybody have standing to sue on their behalf? That's the odd thing, you know. Oh, yeah. The stress, and they're also saying, because, yeah, the harms class members by calling, the executive order harms class members by calling to doubt the citizenship of future newborns, leading to stress and anxiety for future parents who are left afraid and uncertain about the status of their children. Dun, 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 dun. The stress can cause pregnancy complications, jeopardizing the health of the mother and the child. Health of the child, now that's quite something. Suddenly, baby butchers are concerned with the innocence. Yeah, something. So here, we're going to pull this one up and read this. Got it? Yeah. Birthright citizenship plaintiffs make new push to block Trump's order nationwide. Get out of here. A group of plaintiffs challenging President Trump's birthright citizenship restrictions quickly made a new push to block it nationwide, following the Supreme Court's decision Friday. In a 6-3 ruling along ideological lines, the High Court's conservative majority curtailed federal judges' ability to issue nationwide injunctions, but it left the door open for plaintiffs to seek broad relief by filing class action lawsuits. Well, that's actually not what they said. They said there is still a chance for classes, but they said they can't just make everything a class. Within hours, a group of plaintiffs suing in Maryland jumped on a suggestion asking a district judge to issue a new ruling that applies to anyone designated as ineligible for birthright citizenship under Trump's order. Without a class-wide injunction, defendants will deny thousands of babies in the putative class their constitutional and statutory right to United States citizenship, as well as all the rights and privileges of citizenship entails. See, read that again, all right? Without class-wide injunction, defendants will deny thousands of babies in the putative class their constitutional and statutory right to United States citizenship, as well as all the other rights and privileges that citizenship entails. Wouldn't one of those rights and privileges be the right to life? I can't believe they're making this argument, but they're doing it. So let's let them make it. They're give them all the rope they need. It would be, I mean, it would be beyond hysterical if this led to the Supreme Court going, "Oh, I guess you're right. I guess unborn babies do have rights. So I guess you can't kill them then." That would be funny. That would be giggling. I would giggle. Consistent with the Supreme Court's most recent instructions, the court can protect all members of the putative class from irreparable harm that the unlawful executive order threatens to inflict. It continues. The motion was filed by CASA Incorporated, the Asylum Seeking Advocacy Project, and several expectant mothers who filed one of the original lawsuits challenging Trump's executive order. The request will go to the U.S. District Judge Deborah Boardman, an appointee of former President Biden. Well, I guess that's the end of that article. But I think I'd like to really hear somebody, Yeah, I'd like to hear because some more on this. Here's the ACLU talking about it. ACLU defend the rights of all people nationwide. With immigrant rights, trans rights, reproductive. See, they're calling it reproductive freedom. But what about the baby's rights? If the babies have a right to be a citizen, wouldn't the baby have the right to be alive? You're losing me here. Groups filed nationwide class action lawsuit over Trump's birthright citizenship order. Immigrant rights advocates today filed a new nationwide class action lawsuit challenging the Trump administration executive order restricting birthright citizenship. The lawsuit is in response to today's Supreme Court ruling that potentially opens the door for partial enforcement of the executive order. The new case was filed by the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU of New Hampshire, ACLU of Maine, ACLU of Massachusetts, Legal Defense Fund, Asian Law Caucus, and Democracy Defenders Fund on behalf of a proposed class of babies subject to the executive order and their parents. Those would be unborn babies. Those would all be unborn babies. They don't put that in there, but nobody that's born, this would apply to, because this is all about in the future. The same group of organizations filed a similar suit in January in the same court on behalf of groups with members whose babies born on U.S. soil will be denied citizenship under the order, including New Hampshire Indonesian Community Support League, Latin American Citizens, LULAC, and Make the Road New York. What the hell? The court issued a ruling protecting members of these organizations, and that case is pending at the First Circuit Court of Appeals with oral arguments set for August 1st. 3 other lawsuits originally obtained nationwide injunctions protecting everyone subject to the order, but the Supreme Court's decision narrowed those injunctions, potentially leaving some children without protection. The new case seeks to protect all families in the country, filling the gaps that may be left by the existing litigation. Birthright citizenship is a principle that every baby born in the United States is a U.S. citizen. That's a lie. The Constitution's 14th Amendment guarantees citizenship of all citizens born in the United States, with the extremely narrow exception of children of foreign diplomats. That's a lie. It says, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Because it doesn't include Native Americans. They had to do a different thing for that. These people are lying. It's like Sotomayor tried to lie in her dissent in this, saying that subject to the laws of the country. That's what she said, instead of subject to the jurisdiction, because she knows there's a difference and she's trying to play games. Specifically, it states that all persons are naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Today's lawsuit challenges the Trump administration with flouting the Constitution, congressional intent, and long-standing Supreme Court precedent, and it is in the national scope. They're lying, though. They're all liars that lie. Every court to have looked at this cruel order agrees that it is unconstitutional, said Cody Wofsy, deputy director of the ACLU's Immigrant Right Project. Well, that's because they only sued in districts where they cherry-picked judges. They didn't sue in other districts where people that would actually look at it. They only, that's what I'm saying. They judge shop to get injunctions. So let's see what happens if they have to sue in every district. Let's see if another district goes, no, it's fine. The Supreme Court's decision did not remotely suggest otherwise, and we're fighting to make sure President Trump cannot trample on the citizenship rights of a single child. This executive order directly opposes our constitutional values. That's a lie. The history on it would create a permanent, multi-generational subclass of people born in the U.S. but who are denied full rights. Yeah, people who are not born, who are not under the jurisdiction of the United States. Illegal aliens are not under the jurisdiction of the United States. Sojourners and travelers are not under the jurisdiction of the United States. They're not. You know, people who come here on a tourist visa are not under the jurisdiction of the United States. They're under other jurisdiction. They're tourists. So they have allegiance to other countries. Their children are not supposed to be American citizens if they're born in the United States. That's this full understanding. That's if you read the congressional record, if you read all the research, if you read the Supreme Court decision in Wong Kim Ark, it's plain. No politician could ever decide who among us born in this country is worthy of citizenship. Yeah, they did. The politicians decided. It's in the 14th Amendment. It says right there, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Whatever. These people are nuts. Yeah, citizenship is a right afforded to us by birth, not by privilege. The Trump administration's executive order is an unlawful attempt to entrench racial hierarchies. How is it racial hierarchies? What does that have to establish second-class citizens in the United States? This is ridiculous. We will continue working to ensure that birthright citizenship, a right granted by the U.S. Constitution, is protected and that the families are not torn apart because of this executive order. Because they're basically admitting that they want these anchor babies, because that way the families can't be torn apart, because the anchor babies will keep them in the country. In face of authoritarian attacks, we're filing class action lawsuits to defend fundamental rights. These people, Asian American communities know firsthand the dangers when citizenship becomes a weapon of exclusion. From the Chinese Exclusion Act to Wong Kim Ark, the Japanese. Wong Kim Ark is, what are they talking about? Oh my God. The Constitution guarantees birthright citizenship. No, it doesn't. And no procedural ruling will stop us from fighting to uphold that. That's a lie. Our plaintiffs and millions of families across the country deserve clarity, stability, and justice. We look forward to making our case in court again. Yeah, I'd like to see this go to Supreme Court and have them actually rule on the merits, because subject to the jurisdiction thereof means something. Constitutional principles that form the foundation of freedom in this country have always been challenged, complex, and multifaceted. The President's executive order violates the plain language of the 14th Amendment. No, it doesn't. It says specifically that it's to follow the 14th Amendment because it's subject to jurisdiction thereof. For more than 125 years, birthright citizenship has made the United States a strong, dynamic nation as is. Now it's actually been making us weaker and weaker. Look at us. Look at the country. Since the 60s when all this immigration started. Look at the country. Look what's happened. We simply won't let this happen. So yeah, so that is that last story that I had. That is the last story I had from last night. So wow, I did that in an hour and a half. So I guess if you give me a second here, let me make a couple changes. Let me pull up some. I'll pull up some of the stories I had from today. Let me take a second. Okay. I'm just pulling up some links. It'll take 1 second here. All right. So I got some links pulled up. Let's check them out. Let's see. Well, let's see. If I do this, does this make it bigger and better? Yeah, that's better. So here's another story. Another one bites the dust. This is about a couple rhinos announced today that they are not going to run for re-election in 2026. So. Yeah, see, that's right. Subject to jurisdiction thereof actually means that they have no other loyalty. So that would mean like if they're still citizens and like people who come who were citizens of other countries who have loyalties to other countries would not be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States because they're still citizens of that other country. That's what it means. You know, like they're not here, they're not permanently here, they haven't given up. So that's kind of what that means. So and it's like basically it's in the congressional record all that they specifically said it doesn't include like gypsies, sojourners, travelers. It didn't include Native Americans, American Indians. They had to do special stuff for those. There's still one tribe that isn't birthright citizenship because they didn't decide to do that. So there we go. Another one bites the dust. Senator Thom Tillis won't run again. After voting against Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, Senator Thom Tillis has announced his retirement. Trump promised a primary. Tillis blinked. Another rhino out. Overall GOP quality score up. Whoa. Tillis was one of just 2 Republicans to vote against advancing Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill on Saturday. Oh, thank you for the $10, Julio. That is awesome. Thank you very, very, very much. Greatly appreciated. I think, does that put us over? Does that put us over the goal? No, still 2 more to go. Still 2 more to go. Still 2 more to go. 2 more to go for another hour. So two more $10 super chats or higher, and we will go for another hour or 2 after the 2 hour. Yeah, but it's not that Tillis also voted for radical LGBTQ plus agenda for gun control, against border enforcement, for radical Biden nominees, etc. Seriously. That's him. Yeah. Let's be clear. Tillis has always been weak. His ACU score is pathetic. He sides with conservatives barely more than half the time. You didn't vote for that. If you wanted a Democrat, you would have voted for one. No wonder Trump called him a grandstander. Won't seek re-election. Saturday night, Trump said he'd interview primary challengers to Tillis personally. Sunday morning, Tillis quits. Message received. When Trump takes aim, rhinos run. Numerous people have come forward wanting to run in the primary against Senator Thom Tillis. I will be meeting with them over the coming weeks, looking for someone who will properly represent the great people of North Carolina and, so importantly, the United States of America. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I think, personally, my personal opinion is I think the person who will run in the primary and who will end up winning the primary and who will probably be the next senator from North Carolina will be a woman by the name of Lara Trump. She's from North Carolina. Her family is very entrenched in North Carolina politics. She's connected. And her family, not her, I don't even know what her maiden name is, but anyway, but her family is very well connected. And supposedly, that's who it's going to be. Either that or maybe Rich Barris will do it. That would be nice. Rich Barris would be good. Trump has now won North Carolina 3 times. The GOP has held both Senate seats there for over a decade. That streak will continue in 2026 with a conservative who will actually vote like one. Someone who doesn't run from Trump, but runs on Trump's agenda. Tillis spent his retirement statement mourning the death of bipartisanship. What he really means is he can't win in a party that won't put up with rhinos. America First is the Republican Party. The old guard, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell wing is fading fast. Good riddance. The party's brand quality is going up. Tillis is out, Bacon is out, more rhinos to follow. Now it's time to take back the Senate with fighters, not fence sitters. North Carolina deserves better, and in 2026 they'll get it. Another rhino retreat. Don Bacon won't run again in U.S. House. Rep. Don Bacon, Republican from Nebraska, one of the GOP's most prominent rhinos, just announced he won't seek re-election. After a decade of undermining MAGA, Bacon saw the writing on the wall and folded. Yeah, this guy sucks. Bacon bucked Trump repeatedly, opposed Gulf of America name change, criticized Trump's Ukraine policy, threatened to vote against rescinding Biden's AIDS slush fund, fought Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, and now another rhino bites the dust. Bacon knew he couldn't win in a post-Paul Ryan, post-Mitch McConnell GOP. He barely held Nebraska 2 into 2024, a district Biden-Harris won, and the Dems are desperate to flip in 2026. With MAGA ascendant and Dems cratering, Bacon didn't want to go out losing. This isn't just about Bacon. Senator Tom Tillis also announced Sunday that he won't run again. He is too consistently opposed to Trump's America First policy. The old guard is collapsing. The party's quality level is going up. Bacon's departure is a win for conservatives and for Trump, especially as the House and Senate race to pass that one big beautiful bill by July 4th. No more rhinos blocking tax cuts, border security, or drilling. If voters wanted a Democrat, they'd vote for a real one. Democrats are hoping Bacon's retirement gives them a path to flip Nebraska 2. Good luck with that. With MAGA energy and Trump-aligned nominee, we can not only hold the district, we can expand the map. Am I talking too fast? But only if you choose fighters, not fence sitters. The era of mealy-mouthed, moderate Republicans is over. It's time to replace them with bold conservatives who fight for America first, without apology. If you vote for a party's candidate, shouldn't you get what you voted for? Let the red wave roll. Yeah, look at that. Why is it so hard to get the actual stuff that we wanted? Yeah, North Carolina, it's because, honestly, it's because some of the party establishment, I'm pretty sure in North Carolina, are still a little racist. And they didn't like, what's his name, Mark Robinson. And so they, like right before the election, they rolled out dirt on him to the Democrat. They gave the dirt to the Democrats so that there wouldn't be a black governor of North Carolina. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Hey, Eastwind Farms, how you doing today? Good to see you. So here we have Senator Tom Tillis goes haywire on President Trump's bill after announcing retirement, slams Trump's staff. This bill will betray the very promise that Donald Trump made in the Oval Office or in the cabinet room when I was there with the finance, where he said we can go after waste, fraud, and abuse on any programs. Now those amateurs that are advising him, not Dr. Oz, because of course he likes Dr. Oz. I'm talking about the White House healthcare experts, refused to tell him that those instructions that were to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse all of a sudden eliminate a government program that's called the provider tax. We have morphed a legal construct that admittedly has been abused and should be eliminated into waste, fraud, and abuse. Listen to this guy. He's a fucking clown.
On health care and betraying a promise. It is inescapable that this bill in its current form will betray the very promise that Donald J. Trump made in the Oval Office or in the cabinet room when I was there with finance.
You know, see, he said in the Oval Office or in the cabinet room. He doesn't remember exactly where the promise was made. He just knows it was made.
Where he said we can go after waste, fraud, and abuse on any programs. Now, those amateurs that are advising him, not Dr. Oz, I'm talking about White House healthcare experts, refuse to tell him that those instructions that were to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse all of a sudden eliminates a government program that's called the provider tax. We have morphed a legal construct that admittedly has been abused and should be eliminated into waste, fraud, and abuse on health care.
Yeah, so this guy's a clown. I'm glad to see him go. Look at that face. Just look at that face. He's got to go. Bye-bye, Tillis. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, bye-bye. Senator Tom Tillis' outburst highlights the core problem with the big, beautiful bill. Rush drafting and vague provisions that let special interests hijack reform. The provider tax elimination proves the bill's fatal flaw, mistaking structural healthcare funding mechanisms for waste while leaving real fraud untouched. This isn't fiscal discipline, it's political theater. CBO's $790 billion Medicaid cut projection shows how DC punts hard choices by slashing essential programs instead of targeting pharma overcharges or billing scams. Tillis is right to call it this bait and switch, but his sudden retirement analysis reeks of swamp theatrics. Real reform requires laser-focused audits, not 1,000-page bills written by lobbyists. There's actually, I have some stories lined up later about there's like a bunch of billions of dollars of fraud. They just arrested a whole bunch of people today for fraud, for Medicare, Medicaid fraud, healthcare fraud. American people deserve transparency, not last-minute sabotage from career politicians on their way out. Yeah, him. He's a career politician on his way out. That's a trash can lid. Okay. Another news story here we have. I don't know if you guys saw this. Isn't really. U.S. revokes visas for musicians after ban leads chants against Israeli military. He said a bunch of stuff. It wasn't just Israeli military. He was saying something like, if you don't like, if you want your country back, shut up or something like that. Or anyway, so Bob Dylan, I don't know, is his name. Yeah, it says, U.S. revokes visa for musicians after ban leads chants against Israeli military. The London-based Bob Dylan duo called for the death of the Israeli military at Glastonbury Music Festival over the weekend. Oof. The State Department has revoked the visas for the London-based punk duo set to tour the U.S. in October after the band led a crowd of festival goers in England in calling for the death of the Israeli military over the weekend. He also called for the destruction of Israel, and he called for everyone to just deal with the fact that their countries no longer exist because of mass immigration. But, that's, I guess, they're always focused on the anti-Semitism stuff. They could focus on the other stuff. Deputy State Secretary Christopher Landau confirmed Monday that the State Department had revoked the U.S. visas for members of the band Bob Dylan over the comments the group made at the Glastonbury Festival in Contemporary Performing Arts. The State Department has revoked the U.S. visas for members of the Bob Dylan band in light of the hateful tirade, including leading the crowd in death chants. The State Department decision came after Bob Dylan, free Palestine, death to the IDF, blah, blah, blah. The group has 20 performance dates for cities in the U.S. starting in October. It's unclear whether the band will still be able to perform this fall. Well, if they don't have visas to come into the country, how would they be able to perform? I mean, that doesn't make. What are they going to just break in? The legendary music festival in Southwest Virginia was live streamed across the globe, and villain, real name Pascal Robinson Foster, quickly received both backlash and support for his comments. The BBC on Monday told Politico it should have pulled the live stream of the duo, condemning the chants as anti-Semitism. Warren Stevens, U.S. ambassador to the UK, also called the chants anti-Semitic and a disgrace. There should be no place in this hateful incitement, intolerance, or the anti-Semitism in the UK. This duo is no longer listed on their talent agency website, United Talent Agency. Also, they lost their talent. They lost their talent agency. In a post on Instagram, the musician said that he's been inundated with messages of both support and hate, but that it is incredibly important that we encourage and inspire future generations to pick up the torch that was passed to us. They should go perform in Palestine. I wonder how that would. Let us display to them loudly and visibly the right thing to do when we want to need change. Let them see the marching in the streets, campaigning on the ground level, organizing online, and shouting about it on every stage that we are offered. He added this caption, "I said what I said." Wow. He said what he said. The duo was not the only performers at the music festival to share support for Palestinians in the ongoing war between Hamas and Israel. Irish rap group Kneecap also led a crowd in chants of Free Palestine at the festival. Their performance was not live streamed. Very, very, very interesting. Okay. We're going to change topics to something a little better, more American-centric. We got right here. One judge to rule them all. Not anymore. On the last day of its term, the Supreme Court struck down the abuse of nationwide injunctions, restoring the separation of powers and ending a major weapon used to paralyze Trump's presidency. Here's why it matters. This morning, I wrote an entire deep dive on this. It's so important, I made it free for all readers. You should check it out. We're gonna check that out in a second. But for years, radical district judges, usually in deep blue jurisdictions, have issued sweeping rulings blocking entire federal policies nationwide. Not just for the plaintiff, not just in their district, but everyone, everywhere. It's unconstitutional. It ends now. In Trump v. Katz, Justice Amy Coney Barrett delivered a 6-3 ruling. When a court concludes the executive branch have acted unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power to. Translation, no more judicial coups. And Justice Barrett torched Justice Jackson's dissent. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. Yeah. These rogue judges were never supposed to have this power. Not under the Constitution, not under the Judiciary Act, never. Sunshine says, The reason they're siding with the unborn now is that they can make more off the backs of the newcomers. It's the left. They'll abandon anything if it suits them. Yeah, I'm behind in the show. Oh, cool. Well, here's the opinion. We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We reserve only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. No one disputes that the executive has a duty to follow the law, but the judiciary does not have unbridled authority to enforce this obligation. In fact, sometimes the law prohibits the judiciary from doing so. See Marbury v. Madison. Yeah, the judges will. Life is indifferent. Judges will try to find ways around it, but the courts are going to have, the Supreme Court's going to have to be prepared to smack them down. So, yeah. Why does all this matter? Because Trump received more nationwide injunctions than all other presidents combined. Not to ensure justice, to block every policy the voters chose. Immigration, deregulation, every personnel decision. It was an attempted judicial coup. This wasn't judicial review. This was an individual activist judges usurping the entire executive branch. One even prohibited the Senate-confirmed Treasury Secretary from accessing his own department's records. That's not checks and balances. That's deep state veto. Yeah, that's right, Snorm. The federal courts only have the power that are given to them by Congress. Congress never authorized them to enforce against the executive branch. Congress is the main check on the executive branch. Actually, they're supposed to be co-equal. So Congress isn't really, they have their own separate powers to do their own things. So I don't know what this IRS audit. I don't know what this means. Oops, I left out a very important subjection. IRS audit. Sorry, White Rabbit. I don't know what that means. That was something. Oh, Carol's returned. It also goes far beyond the Constitution and Judiciary Act's limits. Judges must rule on the case of the parties in front of them, not everyone everywhere. Only the Supreme Court has nationwide jurisdiction, and they just said so. And the decision doesn't remove accountability, it restores it. As Justice Kavanaugh wrote, in justiciable cases, the court, not the district courts, this court, not the district courts, will be the ultimate decision maker on major federal actions. This one part of a bigger coup. For decades, the left has built a shadow government. Unfireable bureaucrats, independent agencies, quote-unquote independent agencies, activist judges, partisan CDO staffers. They use all of them to nullify Republican wins and your vote. This ruling is part of a counter-revolution restoring constitutional limits. Jarkissi neutered unconstitutional agency prosecutions. Dobbs returned abortion to the states. CASA ends nationwide injunctions. Separation of powers is back, and so is your vote. Don't let them gaslight you. The left's slogan was democracy is on the ballot. Turns out it was. And thanks to Donald Trump's judges and the Constitution, democracy just won. Six policies affected by the Supreme Court's crackdown on nationwide injunctions. No more one judges to rule them all. Here are 6 major Trump policies that can now move forward thanks to the landmark ruling. Defunding sanctuary cities. Federal judges block Trump from cutting off funds to cities that harbor illegal aliens. No more. Thanks to SCOTUS, Trump can now strip funding from any city that refuses to enforce federal law, just like the Constitution requires. ICE hits New York for arrest in one day. Voter ID and citizenship verification. Trump's order requiring voter ID and proof of citizenship was blocked by liberal judges in Massachusetts and Washington. That's done now. Trump can now enforce election integrity nationwide. No judge can override it with the stroke of a pen. $3 trillion federal funding freeze. Trump tried to pause $3 trillion in federal spending for review. 23 states sued. Judges blocked it. The SCOTUS ruling clears the path for Trump to shut off the spigot to hostile blue states. No DEI in public schools. Trump's education department ordered a halt to DEI indoctrination in public schools or lose $75 billion in federal funding. Activist judges in Maryland, New Hampshire, and Washington blocked it. Not anymore. This ruling restores Trump's authority to defund woke education. Ban on taxpayer-funded trans surgeries for kids. Trump's January 28th order banning federal funds for child sex transitions. A Baltimore judge tried to stop it. The new SCOTUS decision gives Trump the green light to end taxpayer-funded trans surgeries on minors for good. Shut down USAID. Trump froze $2 billion in funding to USAID, which funneled taxpayer cash into leftist causes at home and abroad. A D.C. judge ordered him to resume it. No more. The bottom line, one district judge in San Francisco can't run the country anymore. Elections actually matter. SCOTUS just restored the Constitution and the separation of powers, and the left's favorite weapon is gone forever. Here's the article. One judge ruled them all. The ban on nationwide injunction abuse restores the separation of powers. If our current Supreme Court comes to be known for anything, it will be that it was the court that restored constitutional limits and the separation of powers. And that's exactly what was at stake on Friday in Trump v. Casa Incorporated with regard to nationwide injunctions. The case itself concerns the contentious issue of birthright citizenship, a matter on which I've written at some hopefully persuasive length and even publicly debated a Yale law professor, which you can watch here. The case against birthright citizenship. But the Justice Department wisely chose to argue not on the merits of that case, they'll likely get to that shortly, but rather the procedural issue regarding whether a single federal judge has the power to shut down an entire presidential policy initiative, not just to the plaintiffs before it, but to everyone everywhere else. Writing for the majority in a 6-3 ruling, Justice Amy Coney Barrett found that to be beyond the powers of the federal courts in the Constitution or the Judiciary Act, she wrote. When a court concludes that the executive branch is acting unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power to. She goes on criticizing KBJ's hyperbolic dissent. Barrett writes, Justice Jackson would do well to heed her own admission. Everyone from the president on down is bound by the law. That goes for judges too. Snap. Barrett added, we will not dwell on our argument. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries the imperial executive while embracing the imperial judiciary. Why does it matter? Most basic, because a single Democrat judges have issued more of these nationwide or universal injunctions against President Trump than against all other presidents combined. This isn't judicial review, it's pure partisanship. In effect, it's an effort to overturn the outcome of the election. Some might call that a coup. But a more insidious, longer-term level, the issuance of these unlawful injunctions is an assertion of the judicial supremacy over the elected branches. One the founders would neither have recognized nor imagined. And that's one more piece of FDR's anti-constitutional revolution, setting up a system of de facto one-party rule in which voters retain the illusion of elections, but in reality, a permanent deep state, permanently populated by unaccountable, largely unfireable Democrats, from these judges to the Congressional Budget Office or to a raving horde of so-called independent agencies, ensures that Democrat policies no matter who or what the voters choose. In the broader context, nationwide injunctions were a bit of a desperation play, TDS perhaps, as evidenced by the hysteria and unprecedented frequency in which they've been employed against Trump. But it ends now. When I was in law school, the measure of a conservative judge was his slavish devotion to stare decisis or precedent. But I asked then, and I maintain now, how does that standard not fly in the face of a written constitution duly adopted and ratified for the people? Wouldn't that approach necessarily saddle us with Plessy v. Ferguson or Dred Scott forever? And shouldn't a true judicial conservative take a machete to bad precedent, adhering tenaciously only to the Constitution itself? The resistance. Democrats spent the last decade telling us democracy's on the ballot. Scaremongering about the threat of Donald Trump supposedly poses to the voters having a say over their fate. Ironically, then, that now out of power, those same Democrats are using every means available to thwart the same voters. January poll found that 42% of deep state bureaucrats intend to resist the elected president. Clearly, someone should have polled the judges too. The thing is, this violates the Constitution and their oaths of office. Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution is perfectly clear. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America, not independent agencies, not career deep staters, and certainly not the other branches of government. Why even bother to have elections if all the people elected are prevented from doing their jobs? But you know the answer. Our democracy, that most cherish of ideals, really just means ruled by Democrats. Nearly the whole bureaucracy is Democrats, so they must be free to do whatever Democrats want. Elections are irrelevant if people get it wrong, and how can they be more ignorant and more wrong by opposing policies demanded by Democrats? But the American Republic was not designed to be ruled over by an army of permanent bureaucrats or a clique of unelected judges. Courts are very pointedly not legislatures, and are prohibited from exercising legislative or executive powers. Their job is to call balls and strikes within the confines of the Constitution. They are not to join the game or rewrite the rules. But not only that, the president was required to exercise executive powers. It is not an abuse of power for him to do things that would have always been understood to fit within that definition. It's what he swore to do. In setting up three branches with different powers, the founding fathers intentionally created a messy system whose ultimate arbiter is always an election. Why let a little thing like the Constitution get in the way of progress? For years now, radical Democrat judges have transformed the judiciary into a weapon of mass obstruction, deploying nationwide injunctions to paralyze the executive branch and nullify presidential authority. These injunctions, legal orders issued by a single local judge that block federal policies from being enforced anywhere across the country, are an innovation of the modern left, a judicial coup designed to neutralize Republican administrations before they can govern. And big shocker, no president has suffered more from this abuse than Donald J. Trump. During Trump's first term, activist judges struck down executive orders on immigration, energy, deregulation, and national security, effectively usurping executive authority and rewriting federal policy from the bench. The attitude was clear. Whatever a Democrat president does must stand forever, even if the electorate rejects it. Settled law, like settled science, means once Democrats have decided something, no one may ever question it again. Now in Trump's second term, this obstruction has reached new extremes. Judges in Maryland and Washington joined his executive order on birthright citizenship before it could be enforced. Not merely as to the plaintiffs, as required by the Constitution and Judiciary Act, but as to all others elsewhere. Another judge forced the administration to reinstate a Biden-era official in the Office of Special Counsel, overriding the president's appointment power. A Washington judge ruled that Trump had to restore Biden-era transgender propaganda to FDA and CDC websites. Yet, another ordered the executive branch to restore federal funding to Biden programs Trump had lawfully defunded. And in perhaps the most egregious example, a single district judge blocked the Senate-confirmed Treasury Secretary from accessing his own department's financial records. I kid you not. That is not law. It is ruled by judicial fiat. It is intended to tie up every policy in the courts for years until Democrats either win or the point is rendered moot. It is an effort by Democrats to maintain their control over the country no matter what the voters have to say. The problem extends beyond mere policy obstruction. It's an outright usurpation of Article 2 executive power. Judges are not simply ruling on the legality of specific executive actions. They are preemptively blocking the president from exercising his constitutional authority. Democrats understand this, and on rare occasions they faced it with the same problem. Consider the Biden administration's reaction when Trump appointed Judge Carl Nichols issued a temporary restraining order against the Biden administration for attempting to realign U.S. AD personnel, which, in my view, he should not have done. The then Democrat-led Department of Justice responded with outrage, arguing that the court had no jurisdiction over routine executive personnel decisions. The hypocrisy is glaring. When a Democrat president asserts executive authority, judicial interference is an outrage. But when a Republican president exercises the same power, judges rush to enjoin him at every turn, and I repeat, Trump has been slapped with more nationwide injunctions than all other presidents combined. Quite a lot more, in fact. My February deep dive on this topic, I pointed out that has become a crisis, one that demands an immediate fix. Nationwide injunctions must be abolished, or at the very least, severely restricted. I suggested several ways to attack the problem, including congressional action, enforcement of Rule 65C of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, requiring the plaintiffs to post bond for their billion, if not trillion-dollar demands. Yeah, but they post bonds. They post like short bonds, like $20, $100, $50. They're not making them pay actual bonds. Expedited Supreme Court review, and of course, where appropriate, executive resistance. All three branches are empowered to defend the Constitution, after all. But I also suggested that the Supreme Court could solve this problem, and solve it they did, holding that neither the Constitution nor the Judiciary Act, more than 2 centuries of precedent, allow rogue judges to enjoin anyone except the parties before them, regarding the facts of their individual cases. And in other words, these judges have never held this power. Furthermore, lest you worry about the president has now been made a king, the court has made it clear the only court with actual nationwide jurisdiction retains the ability to enjoin actual abuses by the administration. After today's decision, the order of operations will not change, Kavanaugh wrote in his concurring opinion. In justiciable cases, this court not the district courts or the Court of Appeals, will often still be the ultimate decision maker as to the interim legal status of major new federal statutes and executive actions. That is the interim legal status for the several-year period before a final decision on the merits. It's exactly what I argued for in February. It's the reestablishment of the separation of powers without giving up checks and balances. Well, we just hit 2 hours, so it looks like I'm going to go a little long. It was elegant and entirely appropriate decision. The judiciary was never meant to function as an unelected, unaccountable super legislature. That is precisely what it's become, thanks to the weaponization of nationwide injunctions. Democrats discovered they could paralyze Republican presidents by funneling lawsuits through hand-picked activist judges who would reliably issue sweeping, now clearly illegal injunctions, freezing executive action. But the game is over now. Donald Trump is now empowered to vigorously pursue a range of policies he was elected on. Ultimately, they may be overruled on the merits, legislated against by Congress, or simply not work out as intended. But as I keep saying, elections have to matter. People have spoken when they elected Barack Obama, and they spoke when they elected Donald Trump. They should get their way within the boundaries set by the Constitution. They should not be spoken down to as if they were wayward children. The right answer to most failures of government is an election. The Supreme Court took back a lot of lost ground on Friday. It likely wouldn't have, but for Donald Trump. The president's counter-revolution goes on. That was a good story. Now into some other news. Another story. Another story. Here we go. Breaking news. A federal judge just delayed the pre-trial release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia due to fears of him being deported. That's right. A judge said, I don't want to release him because if I do, you're going to deport him. So let's...
Judge in Tennessee ruled Kilmar Abrego Garcia will stay in jail for now over concerns he could be deported. Originally, that judge was going to allow him to go and await his trial on human smuggling charges. Abrego Garcia's attorneys asked the judge to delay his release because of what they described as, quote, contradictory statements by the Trump administration. Abrego Garcia was living in Maryland and became a flashpoint over President Trump's immigration policies when he was mistakenly deported to his native El Salvador.
He wasn't mistakenly deported.
Judge in Tennessee
ruled
Kilmar.
He was not mistakenly deported. He was deported because he's a fucking MS-13 criminal. The SHIELD Act's $100 million for deportation defense is a textbook example of misplaced priority. While bureaucrats funnel taxpayer cash into legal services for deportees, the real issue is the systemic failure to secure borders and enforce existing laws. Abrego Garcia's case highlights the chaos, but DC prioritizes activist-driven funding over actual enforcement. Instead of throwing millions at NGOs, redirect that cash to ICE operations, border tech, and vetting processes that prevent illegal entries. Every dollar spent defending deportees is a dollar stolen from securing the homeland. Fix the system, not the symptoms. The numbers and case studies behind the funding fiasco demand a closer look. I agree. I agree. There we go. So, and you guys saw Brian Kohlberger agreed to plead guilty, but we're not going to get into that. Federal judge again delays Abrego Garcia's release from Tennessee jail over deportation concerns. Kilmar Abrego Garcia will remain locked up so that the Trump administration can't deport the alleged MS-13 gang member, a federal judge said in Tennessee's rule Monday. Abrego Garcia's lawyer asked Magistrate Judge Barbara Holmes to keep their client behind bars over contradictory statements by the Trump administration about whether or not he will be deported, according to the court document. Yes, he's going to be deported. They said he's going to be deported. Everyone knows that he's going to be deported. It's going to happen. Abrego Garcia was reported for El Salvador Helho prison and later brought back after a Justice Department lawyer said that he was sent there by mistake. Well, that lawyer got fired because he lied because he wasn't sent there by mistake. The lawyer was a what do you call like a was doing it on purpose to try to be a now faces human smuggling charges and allegations he's a member of. He's always had allegations he was a member of MS-13. He was always reported to be a member of MS-13. Department of Justice spokesman Chad Gilmartin told the AP Thursday that the feds intended to see the smuggling case through before deporting Gregor Garcia. DOJ attorney Jonathan Glynn told a federal judge in Maryland last week that the U.S. government intends to deport Gregor Garcia to a third country and not his native El Salvador. Glynn said there's no timeline for the removal. Gregor Garcia's legal team said they fear Glynn's statement could mean he will be deported immediately. Yeah, deport him immediately. Send him to a saboteur. That was the word I was looking for. Yeah, saboteur. Holmes ruled on June 22nd that the feds failed to show evidence that Gregor Garcia would free justice if he was released from custody. Nashville-based judge then moved toward releasing Gregor Garcia during a June 25th hearing. One of the conditions set for his possible release was that Gregor Garcia would have to live with his U.S. citizen brother in Maryland. Holmes, however, later changed her mind and sided with the Gregor Garcia's lawyers who claimed the Trump administration could remove him from the country before the case was finished. The lawyers asked Holmes to wait to release him until at least July 16th. ICE has placed a detainer on Gregor Garcia to ensure he's not released into the community. Gregor Garcia can't be deported back to his home country of El Salvador following the Supreme Court's ruling that he was unlawfully returned there earlier this year by the Trump administration. Well, that's not exactly what it said. It said all they have to do is determine that he's no longer entitled to withholding from removal to there. That's all they have to do, and then they can send him there. Salvadorian citizen entered the U.S. illegally in 2011. He was arrested in Baltimore on March 12th and accused of trafficking and having ties to MS-13. The Trump administration sent Gregor Garcia to El Salvador's Secot mega prison. The feds returned him to the U.S. on June 6th to face smuggling charges after he allegedly transported illegal immigrants from Texas to Maryland. What's on video in an SUV in 2022 as part of a human smuggling conspiracy. They have witnesses that testified he was indicted for the crimes. Gregor Garcia was paid up to $1,500 per smuggling trip. They have raked in more than $100,000 each year through the trafficking scheme, which also victimized minors, federal authorities claim. Gregor Garcia has pleaded not guilty earlier this month. So, what do we think? The guy got to go. Guy got to go. So, and kind of on the same type of track here, we have this story about CNN. CNN is now promoting an app which tracks the movements of ICE agents to warn illegals. I don't see how this isn't a crime. ICE agents face a 500% increase in assaults and threats. CNN knows exactly what it's doing.
Administration steps up ICE raids and mass deportations. One tech developer is pushing back with an app designed to track ICE activity in real time. It's called ICE Block, and it's controversial to say the least. CNN's Claire Duffy is with us now. How does this work, Claire, and what are the legal implications?
Yeah, John, I talked with Joshua Aaron, who is the longtime tech worker who developed this platform, and he said he really wants it to be an early warning system for people about the location of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement officers. So he says he does not.
Wouldn't that imply that makes it illegal because it's against the law to impede or interfere in their activities? So if you're informing on where they are to give an early warning to people to escape, you're helping them escape, so you're breaking the law.
Want people interfering with those officers' activity, but he does want people to be able to avoid them altogether if they want. So you open the app, it looks like a map, and users can tap the map to report an ICE sighting in their area, and then everybody who uses the platform within 5 miles of that sighting will get a push alert. This is a free iPhone app. It is anonymous. Aaron says he doesn't collect any user data. And what I think is really interesting about this in this moment is we've seen so many of the biggest leaders in tech supporting President Trump, but Aaron is sort of an example of the fact that there are people within the tech industry who are really resistant to Trump's policies. I asked him what he would say to those tech leaders who, for example, were at the inauguration.
So Apple and Google both allowed this app on the App Store. They should be investigated by the DOJ immediately.
Here's what he told me. Take a listen.
I understand that you have shareholders to report to. I understand that you have employees that need their paychecks. But at what point do you say enough is enough?
And John, I should say that ICE did not respond when I asked them about this platform and about Aaron's opposition to their activity.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
The Trump administration steps up ICE raids and mass deportations. One tech developer.
This guy says, I encourage all Trump supporters to download the app and flood it with ICE sightings literally everywhere until it's rendered unusable. It says, post a link to the app. CNN is committing a federal crime. They sure do love their foreign criminals. It's insurrection. Attorney General Bondi needs to make an example of Joshua Aaron of All You Chart Incorporated. His app notifies illegal aliens and resistance activists where ICE agents are in their area. As a result, Democrats can assist the criminal aliens in their escape. While anti-ICE agitators attack federal agents trying to do their job, the app needs to be taken down. He needs to be arrested and prosecuted. Yeah. CNN and Apple promoting app to warn illegals of ICE sighting. I'm gonna, yeah. See, so. Enrique Tarrio's ICE Raid app is a lawful tool empowering citizens to report criminal activity, including illegal immigration under federal statutes. Any app designed to obstruct ICE operations like Joshua Aaron's directly violates 8 U.S.C. 1324, which criminalizes harboring or shielding undocumented individuals. The LAPD already confirmed such interference is illegal when council member Imelda Padilla attempted similar sabotage using AI surveillance. ICE's mission isn't optional, it's federal law. Apps undermining enforcement endanger agents, violate sovereignty, and incentivize lawlessness. Shut them down, prosecute the creators, no exceptions. In this case, I'm surprised. Apple is the only name mentioned. Google would have been my first guess. I guess it isn't available on Google. Surprised to hear that. James Wood says, protect our law enforcement personnel, post sightings everywhere you can, overwhelm this website. Breaking. Baltazar Tom Holman demands an immediate DOJ investigation into CNN for promoting an app that tracks ICE operations to help criminal aliens evade deportation. A national media outlet forecasting law enforcement operations. DOJ needs to look at this, send a strong message. This is disgusting. It's a dangerous job. This puts the danger at a whole new level.
Let's talk really quickly about the excellent agents of ICE. Turns out right now that CNN is pushing an app to track ICE agents to help criminal aliens evade being detained. We have the article up right here along with the clip. What's your response to CNN?
It's disgusting. I mean, I cannot believe we're in a world where the men and women who enforce the law are the bad guys, and one who broke the law, they're victims. And look, it's already a dangerous job. You know, ICE agents are arresting the worst of the worst. President Trump committed from day one. We're going to concentrate our effort on public safety threats and national security threats. So right there, the job's already dangerous. But when you're out there tracking ICE movements and giving people a heads up they're coming, that just puts the danger at a whole new level. You know, it's only a matter of time for someone sits in hiding and waits for an ICE agent and tries to take them out. I mean, this is horrendous that a national media outlet will be out there trying to forecast.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen if somebody used this app and then something happened, somebody did something to an ICE agent or something happened. Could they then charge all the people involved with conspiracy to murder or something for being an accessory to murder?
Law enforcement operations throughout the country. I mean, it's incredible where we're at as a nation, and I think DOJ needs to look at this and see if they're crossing that line. I think we need to send a strong message that we need to protect our law enforcement personnel.
Definitely protect law enforcement personnel. Send a strong message. Start indicting people. Go after the people funding it. You know, yeah. It's not a sanctuary city. It's called harboring fugitives. That's right. That is absolutely right. Seeing Benny Johnson put this up. You know, CNN is now promoting an app that helps criminal illegal aliens dodge ICE in real time. We watched this video. Tom Holman needs to arrest them all. Town Hall. CNN pushes new app. ice block meant to track ice activity in real time, alerting illegal aliens before they are detained and deported. This app is completely free and anonymous to use. See? Seems like Town Hall is promoting it too. It's illegal to conceal, harbor, or shield illegal immigrants from detection in any place per federal law. Title 8 U.S.C. 1324. The app does exactly that. Yeah, if only these innocent Americans' lives had an app to pre-warn them of legal aliens who would forever separate them from their families, deport them all. Maybe FBI Director Kash Patel should pay CNN a visit. Sounds like obstruction of law enforcement. How are cell phone companies going along with an app to block ICE Gov from enforcement? It is questionable, isn't it? Okay, we're going to jump to another story now. Keep moving. We have this about the shooting. I don't know if you guys knew about the shooting and stuff that happened in Idaho. Yesterday, there was a shooting in Idaho where they killed shot a bunch of firemen and stuff like that. So this is what we know about the 20-year-old gunman who ambushed firefighters regarding responding to the fire in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Idaho shooter Wes Rowley aspired to become a firefighter himself. His grandfather, Dale Rowley, revealed he applied for the fire department. He didn't get hired. I don't know if that's true. Let's see. What we know about the deceased suspect, Wes Rowley, in the killing of Idaho firefighters. Wes Rowley, 20, has been identified as a gunman who shot and killed 2 firefighters and injured a third after allegedly setting fire in the woods near Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. A family member expressed shock, saying the family had no reason to suspect that he would be involved in something like this. The suspect was found dead with a firearm nearby. Excuse me. In an interview with CNN, Rowley's grandfather, Dale Rowley, said the grandson came from a family of arborists, which means that they worked on trees and stuff like that, and was trying to figure out his career path while working in the tree service industry. He wanted to be a fireman. He was doing tree work, and he wanted to be a fireman in the forest. As far as I know, he was actually pursuing it. I wonder if he knows. Dale Rowley said his grandson owned a shotgun and a long rifle. It's unclear whether those firearms were used in Sunday's attack. It was revealed during a Monday press conference that the weapon used in the attack was a shotgun. He said that he typically spoken with Wes Rowley on a weekly basis, but hadn't spoken to him in at least a month due to his grandson losing his phone. The suspect in shooting of Idaho firefighters used a shotgun. The grandfather said the suspect had a loving family and friends and had gone on vacation to Hawaii with his mother last year. It wasn't like he was a loner. We had no reason to suspect that he would be involved in something like this. He said he was holding out hope that the grandson wasn't actually the shooter. According to CNN, Wes Rowley previously lived in Phoenix area and had graduated high school in 2024. Court documents viewed by the outlet revealed that his mother filed for divorce in September 2015 when Rowley was 10. The mother wrote that her husband had threatened her, pushed her to the ground, and punched several holes in the wall. Yeah, Doc, that's a good idea. Use that app to report Walmart an hour before going, and then it'll be cleared out. Yeah, yeah. So you can no waiting, no waiting. He threatened to sit outside my house with a sniper rifle and burn my house down, she wrote. A protective order was granted by a judge, blocking Rowley's father from having contact with his wife or son. The order was later amended to allow contact with his son after his father wrote in a filing saying that I am not a danger to my son or anyone else, and his wife did not tell the truth in her statement. Divorce was granted in November 2015, and the mother was designated as Rowley's primary residential parent. Rowley's father told CNN that he wasn't close to his son. He had seen him at a family gathering last summer. Firefighters were shot at while responding to a fire on Sunday near Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Officials believe the fire was set intentionally as part of an ambush. 2 firefighters were killed and a third was injured, who was listed as being in stable condition as of Monday. It says, just in, the suspect in Idaho firefighter shooting used a shotgun, not a sniper rifle, per Kootenai County Sheriff. This means he was much closer to the victims than originally thought. The assailant, Wes Rowley, interacted with the firefighters prior to taking them out. Rowley has previously expressed interest in becoming a firefighter, the sheriff said. So, we'll listen to what the sheriff has to say.
Sheriff, can you describe the weapon that you found next to it?
It appears right now we have a shotgun that was used, but we're still processing the scene.
So obviously a shotgun is not a sniper weapon.
Correct.
Do you know what kind of weapon that was?
Well, we're still processing the scene, but let me kind of set the scene for everybody. When you're in a rural area and you're heavily treed, heavily brushed, and when you're taking fire, then it just adds a whole different dynamic to the situation. So what was reported by people on scene, by peace officers on scene, that they believed they were taking sniper fire, yes. And then that's where that is. Lady in the black.
Sure.
It just says he was, Ross Farley was a 20-year-old from a family of arborists with aspirations to become a forestry firefighter. Born in California, he lived in Arizona and Idaho, graduated high school in Phoenix. His parents were divorced when he was 10. In a tumultuous family life, including allegations of threats by his father, Rowley had 5 minor law enforcement contacts, like trespassing, but no major criminal record. He was reportedly living out of his vehicle. Unverified social media claims about his personal life, including gender or political affiliation, lack credible evidence. His motive for the Idaho ambush remains unclear. Well, that's because, yeah, I've seen a bunch of stuff about the I've seen a bunch of stuff about claiming, oh, his parents were Trump supporters and all this other stuff, which none of that stuff's been approved, and I don't know what that difference that would make, really. But whatever. So that's all we have on the guy that killed the fireman. So at this point, I'm sure more will come out. Maybe not. Who knows? Because they tend to not release information if it makes a certain side look bad. Excuse me. Well, so all right, we're gonna jump on to another story. Trump's Iran strike changed the game. The media doesn't want to talk about it, but Trump just did what every President Clinton promised to do. He obliterated Iran's nuclear weapons program and changed the Middle East forever. Here's what really happened. Since 1995, every U.S. president vowed Iran would never get the bomb. But for 30 years, Iran laughed and kept building. Until June 22nd, 2025, when President Trump launched Operation Midnight Hammer and did what none of them dared. 7 B-2 bombers flew 18-plus hours from Whiteman Air Force Base to Iran. Each carried 2 30,000-pound MOPs, ground-penetrating bombs, massive ordnance penetrators. In 120 seconds over enemy airspace, they obliterated Iran's 3 key nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Precision, no warning, no leaks. Here's a video of the B-2s flying. We're not gonna. I don't want to get. I don't want to get struck. So we're not gonna get into that. That music will get me struck. Iran's supreme leader lied, claiming the strikes did nothing. Democrats joined him, of course, but even Iran's foreign minister admitted serious damage. The regime was caught flat-footed. The mullahs are bleeding, and they know it. And it didn't cost a single U.S. life. Yeah, that was Megadeth, Death Angel Shadow, but I'd get struck if I let it play. But this wasn't just about the nukes. Trump now has 2 historic opportunities. Expand the Abraham Accords, quietly back those seeking to overthrow the regime in Iran. Both will reshape the Middle East for decades and bring real peace. Oh my God. Abraham Accords were Trump's greatest diplomatic win. Now, every Arab leader just watched Trump stand against Iran and win. Saudi Arabia fears Iran. It knows it needs Israel. That creates leverage. Trump will use it. The Arab street will follow strength. The next step. Tens of thousands of Iranians are ready to rise. They need funding, intelligence, leadership. The CIA's job is to make bad governments fall. I don't think we should be involved, man. I don't think we should be involved in anything. If people want to do an uprising or whatever, that's fine, but our CIA should not. No. I mean, the CIA and British government was responsible for installing the Shah of Iran in the 50s. They were responsible for the Shah falling in the 70s. It's not, and for these people coming to power that they back the student protest in the 77, we need to stay out of it, man. Trump should give the order quietly, permanently, because Iran's regime is evil, more to its own people than anyone. Trump wants peace. He just destroyed Iran's path to nuclear war in under 2 minutes. Now he can finish the job. Expand the Abraham Accords, topple the mullahs, end the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. It's not about forever wars. It's about winning them fast. Okay, so, all right. Well, that was the last article that I had. Let me see. That was the last article that I had lined up for today. I have more. Should I keep going? Let's ask. Let's ask. Chat. What do you guys think? Would you like to keep going? Should I do some more stories? I have a few more. I don't know if I should just end now and just send everybody over to Joe's stream, or if I should keep going. Let's see. I have a couple more. I have a couple more things I could that we could do. So let's see. Breaking. Trump to open new illegal immigrant detention facility in Everglades named Alligator Alcatraz. Up to 5,000 criminal aliens will be held, processed, and deported from this remote base deep in the Florida swamp. This is just awesome. Dun, 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 dun. Look at that. Alligators. The gators. The gators are going to get ice hats and everything, and they'll keep the people in there. It sits in the old Dade Collier Jetport, planned in 1968 to be the largest airport on Earth. Only one runway was ever built. Now Trump and Ron DeSantis are making it a symbol of border security. There's only one road in and one way, and a one-way flight out. Yeah, there was protesters trying to go there and do stuff, but they couldn't do anything. They didn't get in the way. White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt. It's isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. Translation: no soft on crime, jailbreaks here. You escape, you meet the alligators or the pythons. Self-deportation is starting to look pretty good. Dubbed Alligator Alcatraz by Florida AG James Altemeyer, the site offers a key strategic advantage. You don't need to invest much in the perimeter. There's nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. Trump's immigration policy just found its teeth and claws. It's in the middle of the Everglades swamp. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Governor Ron DeSantis, and Rep. Byron Donalds will join Trump on site July 1st for the official openings. This is part of Trump's national deportation campaign. It's also a symbol, like his reopening of the original Alcatraz, zero tolerance. I don't think they're reopening the original Alcatraz. It's way too expensive. That's why they closed it. It was too super expensive to run. What the facility will do, it'll hold up to 5,000 criminal illegal aliens, rapidly process deportations, minimize escape risk, reduce the cost with existing infrastructure, and support Trump's one big beautiful bill. Oh, and completely freak illegals out. Look at that. Alligator ice agents. Of course, Democrats are horrified. 2 environmental groups just filed a lawsuit to block the project, claiming lack of environmental review. But the state says no new vegetation cleared, no permanent structures added, current runway reused. They're out of excuses. Yeah, they're not damaging anything. Trump's message is clear. If you cross our border illegally, you will be detained, not released. You will be deported, not coddled. You won't escape into a sanctuary city. This is America First immigration, real, visible, and relentless. Trump and DeSantis' Alligator Alcatraz isn't just a detention center. It's a statement. No more catch and release, no more loopholes, no more open borders nonsense. July 1st is the grand opening. The wall is rising and the swamp is biting. That's crazy. 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 Okay, let me get a couple more links. 1 second. Just opening more tabs. Okay. Okay, news story. Okay. Oh no, don't stop. Oh no, don't stop. Who, me? Don't stop? Okay. I'll keep going. I'll keep going. Red states have launched a hawk-style takeover of public universities. Who runs public universities, Glenn? And from whom are they taking them over from? Well, that's right. It's not a hostile takeover. They're all doing to regain some common sense, merit-based fairness. I mean, it's states. It's a public university. It's supposed to be controlled by the public, like public means the government. Earlier this month, for the first time in history, the Florida Board of Governors rejected a university's choice of college president. Despite unanimous approval by the University of Florida's Board of Trustees, MAGA activists attacked Santa Ono, former president of the University of Michigan, for his past support of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, his views on admission, gender-affirming care, and climate change, and his handling of pro-Palestinian protests and the COVID-19 pandemic. Ono's claim that "I am here to ensure that DEI never returns to the University of Florida" was too little, too late. Florida is at the extreme edge of the unprecedented red state campaign to reinforce and sometimes undo the Trump administration's effort to sometimes outdo the Trump administration's efforts to remake higher education. But Florida is by no means alone. Since 2023, 135 bills have been introduced in 29 states to eliminate DEI offices, ban mandatory diversity training, forbid the use of diversity statements in hiring and promotion, and bar colleges and universities from requiring classes that promote concepts such as systemic racism, reparations, and racial or gender diversity. How can I close this? What the hell's going on? What is happening? What is happening? Why can't I close this out? I don't want to see this. There it is. Oh, fine. "27 of those bills have become law. Educational gag orders restricting instruction about race and gender and sexual orientation have also grown increasingly extreme. Ohio limits discussion of controversial beliefs or policies, including climate policies, electoral politics, foreign policy, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, immigration policy, marriage or abortion, or even requires the universities to ensure the fullest degree of intellectual diversity, and bans or restricts most DEI-related policies and programs." Where's who gonna poop? Florida's Stop Woke Act, which sought to regulate how colleges and universities teach divisive comments, have also been blocked by federal courts as a violation of the First Amendment. Nonetheless, Florida's Board of Governors and State Board of Education has eliminated hundreds of general education courses from the state's 40 public institutions to comply with legislation banning instruction based on identity politics and theories that systemic racism, sexism, oppression, and privilege are inherent to the institutions of the United States. Last week, following criticism of existing accreditation agencies supporting DEI, the public university system in Florida, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee has established their own accreditor. Ohio and Utah and Florida mandate civics instruction focused on conservative vision of Western civilization. Ohio requires students to read at least 5 essays from the Federalist Papers, Martin Luther King's letter from the Birmingham jail, and the writings of Adam Smith. Multiple states, including Florida, Arizona, and Tennessee, established civics institutes intended to be bastions of conservative thought. So that's what I'm saying. So the act. The hell? Come on, stop it. The academic tradition shared governance is also under attack. A bill in Arizona vetoed by its governor would have stripped faculty of the ability to approve academic degrees or programs. In a law enacted earlier this week that may serve as a model for other states, Texas reserved the governing board of each public university whose members are appointed by the governor the right to overturn any decision made by the institution regarding any change to the general education curriculum, approve or deny the hiring of any individual for the position of provost or deputy associate or assistant provost, collaborate with institutions to set campus admission standards, and overturn any hiring decision for the position of vice president or dean. Texas also gave university boards exclusive authority to establish faculty senates and councils, prohibit them from issuing statements not directly related to educational mandate, and limited them to advisory roles. While the presiding officer appointed by the institution's president, faculty and staff may provide recommendations on academic matters so long as governing boards and institution leadership retain clear and ultimate decision-making authority. And another sign of a hyper-politicized higher education, red states are increasingly using ideological litmus tests for prospective trustees and presidents. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, for example, transformed New College from, in his words, a center of woke indoctrination into a conservative haven by stacking the board with right-wing partisans and naming a conservative president. These campaigns at the federal and state level to undermine academic freedom, but it wasn't really academic freedom if everyone was just pushing in Democrats and leftist thinkers, was it? I mean, is that academic freedom? I mean, I know they've kind of taken over the universities, but this is a way to kind of try to take it back. Often imposed conservative values are often compared to McCarthy-era initiatives. Joe McCarthy was right about the commies, though. What's happening today is far broader and more damaging. McCarthyites focused almost exclusively on a single issue, the perceived spread of communist influence. Yeah, get rid of them. Mandates were directed principally at faculty and staff who refused to take loyalty oaths. Professors of economics and political science were pressured to teach virtues of democracy and the free enterprise system, even when institutions dragged their feet in complying. Neither state or federal government imposed anything remotely like punitive or crippling measures on employees against educational institutions today. Nonetheless, the McCarthy era fostered a climate of fear and intellectual conformity in higher education that took years to dissipate. When, if ever, will the public and private institutions recover from the ongoing all-out assault of freedom of teaching and learning that made American higher education the envy of the world? Isn't anyone's guess? Oh well. Oh well. All right. Now this story is, I don't know. The story might get me demonetized, but we're going to talk about it. 9 underage girls abused by Syrians at swimming pool. Mayor points to hot weather. So a mayor says that the reason this happened was because it was so hot. After underage girls were assaulted in a Barbasobada swimming pool in Geinhausen, the CDU mayor of the area pointed out that hot weather makes tempers fray. In a statement to Welt, he said, "Of course, it's always high temperatures and sometimes tempers are frayed." In a separate interview with Bild, he said, "We have zero tolerance for that." As Remix News previously reported, the first group of girls was groped and molested by a group of Syrians, but when they complained to a lifeguard, he took no action because he couldn't see exactly what had happened. "We sent the girls back into the water," pool manager Nils Tischer explained to Rundfunk. It was only after more girls made a complaint from a separate group that the police were called. In total, at least 9 girls came forward, ranging from the ages 11 to 17. The girls told authorities that 4 Syrians aged 18 to 28 groped them in the lazy river, feeling them all over their bodies, including their genitals. A 5th suspect managed to escape, and police are still looking for him. According to Mayor Christian Litzinger, CDU, all 4 subjects are from the same family in the Main-Kinzig district. They were all arrested and charged in addition to receiving a ban from the outdoor pool, but they'd go to the indoor pool. Alice Weidel, the Alternative for Germany co-leader, also posted about the incident on social media, calling for the immediate deportations in the case. Okay, let's use Sexualbelastung van Madwerk, Garden und een Opfer solchen sexueller Übergriffen in Gruppen seriösen Straftaten Solidaritäten in einem verbindenden Institutionen Hassienen Badingen Heiben, so that it's Eisendora Tate Vossen Sladden. Diffilum eden die. Severe group of Balligers, 9 Majican, Tete Sofort Abesrein. Attempts to downplay the problems in German swimming pools. Litzinger's comments echo some other excuses offered by sexual violence and assaults from migrants in Germany's once peaceful swimming pools. An article in 2023 from Zeit attempted to claim that much of the violence and sexual assaults were due to rising French fry prices. Well, thank you. I did my best. I thought of all those movies I watched as a kid growing up. At the time, Alice Weidel, co-leader of Alternative for Germany, AfD, criticized the claim. Ziet blames French fry prices for violence and sexual assaults in outdoor pools. CDF claims an interplay of heat and the meeting of many people. Deutschlandfunk writes about too high expectations that cannot be met. The degree to which the media trivializes migration problems no longer knows any limits, wrote Alice Weidel, parliament leader of the AfD. Okay, let's see. Die Zeit macht Promise Friends for Gewalt and Sexual Ungefähr in Verland Wergenvolk, das CDF in Sefzel von Hitz in den Ausbrennen als ein Wähler Mensch. Der Deutschlandfunk in Hollands Ding für die Journalisten Kon, der Grad Sudo. Just a week before that statement, the actual workers at the swimming pool offered an entirely different reason for the increasing violence. Employees of the Columbia Bad outdoor swimming complex in Berlin penned a letter to Der Tagesspiegel newspaper complaining about perpetrators that describe as mainly Arab migrants and Chechens who are engaged in sexual harassment of women and mass brawls on the premises, while also leaving the complexes in disgusting conditions. As a result, the entire pool was shut down for an indefinite period of time due to workers calling out sick from stress. Remix News has long reported on a growing crime trend in Germany swimming pools, including mass brawls and sexual assaults, as well as attacks on police, security officials, and even lifeguards working at the pools. In 2022, Remix News covered how the president of the Federal Association of German Swimming Pool Champions, BDS, Peter Harzenheim, said he can no longer recommend that families visit such facilities on the weekends. Harzenheim claims that he would be acting irresponsibly if he attended an outdoor pool with his own 3 grandchildren due to the violent assaults, which Remix News articles detailed. Some individuals have been seriously injured last year. For example, a woman had her nose broken and she was caught in the middle of a mass brawl involving foreigners. 2023, Welt released a popular video documentary detailing how macho culture from migrants was turning swimming pools in Germany upside down. Gerber. Columbia Dam swimming pool in the multicultural neighborhood of Neukölln, Berlin, was closed down due to over 40 worrying youths. Welt lays the blame squarely at the feet of macho culture from immigrant youth. In Pankow, a German swimming pool had to be shut down twice in 1 week due to mass brawls between young people. In the German city of Celle, 20 rampaging youth, that's what they call them here, rampaging teens, attacked swimmers and sexually assaulted them, including beating one female who rejected their advances. When lifeguards attempted to stop them, they threatened them as well. As a result, the entire swimming pool was shut down. Okay. Okay. On to the next story. The Supreme Court victory of parents in Mahmoud v. Taylor over opt-outs from the LGBTQ lesson unleashed an apocalyptic Sotomayor dissent with Kagan and Jackson, who suggested that the very future of public education was now in peril. The truth is that the decision could actually save public education in the U.S. Our public schools are imploding. Families are objecting to the priority given to the political and social agendas to make their kids better people when they lack math and science and other skills. The liberal justices are right about one thing. This is a fight over the essence of public education. However, it is the parents, not the educators or these justices, who are trying to restore public education to meet the demands for a diverse nation. The Supreme Court just handed down a decision that's got the liberal justices acting like the sky is falling. The case was about a Maryland school district that wanted to force kids as young as 5 to sit through mandatory lessons about LGBTQ plus topics, complete with stories about male knights getting married and kids transitioning with genders. When parents, and we're talking about a diverse mix of Christian, Muslim, and other families, asked to opt their kids out, the school basically said, tough luck. The Supreme Court majority said, hold on a minute. If you let the parents opt out of other stuff, you've got to let them opt out of this too. Pretty straightforward, right? But listening to the dissenting justice, you'd think they just unleashed the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse on the American education. The real kicker here is that Justice Jackson's brilliant suggestion that if parents don't like what's being taught, they should just pack up and send their kids to private school. Think about that. Just pack up and send your kids to private school. I mean, it's got the whole Marie Antoinette vibe to it, you know. Let them eat cake. Except now it's let them pay tuition, because apparently even every working family has an extra 20 grand lying around, right? It's a kind of moment that would be almost comical if it weren't so tone deaf. Then you've got Justice Sotomayor wringing her hands about how this ruling is going to chill schools from pushing their social agenda. Well, that's a thought. Maybe if you stop teaching 5-year-olds like guinea pigs for your social experiments and actually taught them to read, parents wouldn't be running for the exits. Public schools are hemorrhaging students because families are fed up with the priorities being all backward. The decision may just force these schools to remember what they're supposed to be doing in the first place, teaching the kids. So this is going to, the end is nigh. Liberal justice predict chaos as the demise of public education without mandatory LGBTQ materials. Below is my column in the Hill on the ruling of Mahmoud v. Taylor in favor of parents who want to withdraw their children from LGBTQ lessons in the public schools. I agreed with the majority, but it was Justice Sotomayor's dissent, joined by Kagan and Jackson, that was the most striking in its apocalyptic take on allowing parents to remove their children from the classes. Despite this fact that various opt-outs have allowed parents, this one deemed a threat to the very essence of public education. Here's the count. The end is nigh. Seems to be the message this week from 3 liberal justices at the Supreme Court when faced with the nightmarish prospect of parents being able to remove their young children from mandatory classes on gay, lesbian, and transgender material. The decision in Mahmoud v. Taylor was a roaring victory for parents in public schools. Montgomery County, Maryland school system fought to require the reading of 13 LGBTQ plus inclusive texts in the English and language arts curriculum for kids from the pre-K through 12th grade that cover children just 11 years old. The children are required to read or listen to stories like Prince and the Knight about 2 male knights who marry each other, and Love Violet about 2 young girls falling in love. Another, Born Ready, is a true story of a boy named Penelope, discussed as a biological girl who begins to transition to being a boy. Teachers were informed of this mandatory reading, which must be assigned, and the families would not be able to opt out. The guidelines for teachers made clear that students had to be corrected if they expressed errant or opposing views on gender. If a child questions how someone born a boy could be a girl, teachers were encouraged to correct the child and declare that comment is hurtful. Even if a student merely asks what's transgender, the teachers are expected to say, when we're born, people make a guess about our gender and label us boy or girl based on our body parts. Sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. I mean, that's crazy, right? Teachers were specifically told to disrupt thinking or values opposing transgender views. Many families sought to opt out of these lessons. The school allows for such opt-outs for a variety of reasons, but the board ruled out withdrawals for these lessons. Ironically, it noted that so many families were upset and objecting that it would be burdensome to allow so many kids to withdraw. The Montgomery County school system is one of the most diverse in the nation, and Christian, Muslim, and other families objected to the mandatory program as undermining their religious and moral values. Majority on the Supreme Court ruled that, as with other opt-outs, Montgomery County must allow parents to withdraw their children from these lessons. The response from liberal groups was outrage. Liberal sites declared another victory for right-wing culture warriors, even though the public overwhelmingly supported these parents. However, the most overwrought language came not from liberal advocates, but liberal justices. Justice Sotomayor declared that there will be chaos for this nation's public schools, and both education and children will suffer. If parents are allowed to opt their children out of these lessons, she also worried about the chilling effect of the ruling, which would make schools more hesitant to offer such classes in the future. Well, good. It was particularly curious concern since parents would like teachers to be more focused on core subjects and show greater restraint in pursuing social agendas. Majority pushed back against the deliberate, blinkered view of the 3 liberal justices on dismissing the objections of so many families to these lessons. Nevertheless, even though such material was only recently added and made mandatory, the liberal justice declared that the damage to the American public education system would be profound, and that this threatens the very essence of public education. The truth is that this decision could actually save public education in the U.S. Previously, during oral arguments, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson had shocked many when she dismissed the objection of parents, stating that they could simply remove their children from public schools. It was a callous response to many families who do not have the means to pay for private or parochial schools. Yeah, especially since they just ruled recently. It was a 4-4 decision because Amy Coney Barrett had to withdraw that they couldn't use vouchers to go to like parochial schools, school vouchers, because religion. Yet it was a view previously expressed by many Democrats. Remove their children from schools or public schools. It was a callous response to families who do not have the means. Yet it was a view previously expressed by many Democrat politicians and school officials. State Rep. Lee Snodgrass once insisted if parents want to have a say in their child's education, they should homeschool or pay for private school tuition out of their family budget. Iowa School Board member Rachel Wall said the purpose of public education is not to teach kids what the parents want. It's to teach them what society needs them to know. The client is not the parent, but the community. You see, homeschool your kids. These parents still harbor the apparently misguided notion that they remained their children. Today, many are indeed following Jackson's advice and leaving public schools. The opposition to public sector unions and many Democrat politicians to school vouchers is precisely because families are fleeing the failing public school systems. Once they are no longer captive to the system, they opt for private schools that they offer greater focus on basic education subjects and less emphasis on social activism. Our public schools are imploding. Some are lowering standards to achieve equity and graduating students without proficiency skills. Families are objecting to the priority given to political and social agendas to make their kids better people when they lack math, science, and other skills needed to compete in an increasingly competitive marketplace. What the majority calls a deliberate, blinkered view of the dissent could just as well describe the delusional position of public school boards and unions. Schools are facing rising debt and severe declines in enrollment. Yet unions in states like Illinois are demanding even more staff increases and larger expenditures. Liberal justices are right about one thing: to fight over the essence of public school education. However, if the parents, not the educators, or these justices who are trying to restore public education to meet the demands of a diverse nation. All right, got another story here. Going to switch topics. This is going to go back to New York. We're going to talk about Big Tish. Shocking allegations of sexual abuse and abductions by Big Tish James. Big Tish is headed to the big house. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Naughty Letitia James, Margaret Fraud edition. Fraud, TDS. Putting the ham in what? No. Okay. More info on Angel Dubois' Christmas party accusation. Will it end Letitia James's career? Angel S. Dubois says she went to a Christmas party and ended up drugged, kidnapped, assaulted, and dumped like garbage by her own boss and her staff. That boss, Letitia James. This wasn't in some abandoned warehouse. This was in a city office Christmas party for the Public Advocate of New York City. James was then the public advocate. Angel Dubois was part of the team, serving as an outreach coordinator in the office and earning $35,000 per year. Oh, okay. Life is indifferent. I'm sorry to hear you've had a hellish week. Have a good night, and I hope to see you later in the week. She came to the party like anyone else, but she didn't leave like the way she came. Angel Dubois and her outfit worn at the Christmas party. The alleged incident, she says, occurred 11 years ago, December 22nd, 2014, before James was elected New York State Attorney General in 2018. Letitia James, when she was a New York City public advocate. Dubois claims assault occurred at Woodrow's in Manhattan. Woodrow's Bar and Grill is now closed, was near City Hall. It was at Woodrow's Bar and Grill in Manhattan. Dubois said she was drugged. Outside its door, she was transported not by rebels or terrorists, but allegedly by an elected official and city employees. Then, at a nearby apartment, she said, as many as a dozen individuals sexually assaulted her in a bizarre and creepy sex cult-style ritual. She remembers a grotesque ceremony of power and cruelty with the priestess leading the chant and others repeating. Dubois claimed she was later abandoned unconscious on the streets of New York. Dubois began reporting the alleged kidnapping and assault the next day. A cab ride home. Following the alleged assault, Dubois stated that James' staff attempted to convince her the incident had not occurred, that her mind had invented it, like a bedtime story with monsters and men in suits. She was drunk, they said, and James' assistant, Sarah Venezuela, put her in a cab to take her home. Sarah Catherine Venezuela, Angel Dubois said that Venezuela told her to call the cab to take her home. However, Dubois was found on the street, far from her home. There was a record of that. Dubois, not Venezuela, hailed the cab that took her home after she woke up dazed in the sleet. There is a record of that. Dubois said she wasn't drunk, she was drugged. Tisha James' staff told others that Dubois had PTSD because of her mother's recent passing. They did not conduct thorough research. Her mother had died 37 years earlier. It may have been a master class in gaslighting, or maybe, as Letitia James said, it didn't happen. Relentless retelling of the story from day 1 to year 11. But Angel Dubois never let it go. She has told her story again and again, and over the years, various offices and administrations. Most people would have shut up and moved on. She kept going. In 2017, more than 2.5 years after the alleged kidnapping and assault, the New York Post reported on Dubois' claim, reported as she said dispute. Dubois claimed then James, then Chief of Staff Ibrahim Khan, as the person who drugged her. He slipped her something in a drink he bought for her, she said. His hand strangely hovering over the glass. Dubois claims Ibrahim Khan put drugs in her drink after summoning her to meet him at the end of the bar. Letitia James, former Chief of Staff Ibrahim Khan, did he try to drug Angel S. Dubois? James calls Dubois' story a lie. Post removes story. James' then spokesman, Anna Bauer, told the Post there is an absolute no truth to these allegations. They are an outright lie. Anna Bauer was James' spokesperson when James was public advocate. She is now chief of staff at her New York State Attorney General's office. The Post kept the story online for 5 years before quietly removing it, offering no explanation, no correction, no update. The Post posted, then unposted. It was 2022. The Post story vanished precisely when the New York Times reported that 2 other women brought sexual misconduct claims against James' Chief of Staff Khan, the man whom Dubois claimed had drugged her. The Times further reported that James had known about the woman's accusations and covered it up long enough to win re-election. The New York Post helped James outright bury a third accuser, the first one to come forward, Angel Dubois, by quietly taking her story offline. It's now 2025. Dubois keep telling her story. She said 11 years ago, public interest is growing. Following the publication of my first report, which was amplified on social media by Donald J. Trump, I released a second story about the event went viral. Donald Trump posted a link to my story about Letitia James and Dubois. A number of media influencers have carried the narrative across YouTube and other platforms. Dubois has also launched a GoFundMe campaign to fund legal action. Following recent reports of James' alleged mortgage fraud, well, she could probably sue. She should sue because she could sue James and the guy who drugged her and all that. She can sue them all in New York. She can't. Until lately, all we had advantage to a Post story wherein James spokesman Brower said nobody failed to investigate and nobody covered it up. When these allegations were first raised, we referred them to the Department of Investigation, which reviewed and closed the matter. Brower did not serve on James' staff at the time. She might not have been aware that senior members of James' team, Deputy Chief of Staff Laura Acosta and Legal Counsel Jennifer Levy, submitted versions of Angel Dubois' EEO complaint to the Department of Investigation that they altered. Acosta and Levy, who worked for James, rewrote Dubois' complaint and erased what Dubois said happened. Imagine waiting for a cry for help and someone else hits send for you and they changed all the words first. Brower wasn't in the room. Maybe she had no idea the original story never made it past the shredder. This publication has obtained the original 4-page EEO complaint filed by Angel Dubois, as well as the 1.5-page version later submitted by senior aides to the DOI. The documents differ radically. Discrepancies raise one question. Why did James's staff alter Dubois' complaint, resulting in the DOI investigation that was open and closed in 4 business days? There were 2 complaints. Dubois wrote the first one, and within 2 weeks after the assault, it's powerful, detailed, and painful. Another one submitted by James Todd's aide, altered, softened, rewritten. We can finally ask what should have been asked all along. Why would anyone change a woman's cry for help? Brower, in her defense of Letitia James, cited the role of then Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance in reviewing and ultimately deciding declining to pursue Dubois' allegations. Brower said the Manhattan DA's office investigated and closed it. On April 10, 2017, NYPD referred Dubois to the Special Victims Unit and Manhattan DA's office. Vance assigned District Attorney Shannon Lucey to handle the matter. Dubois said she told Eddie Lucey that 2 men whom she knew as co-workers and who were at the party had forcibly placed her in the backseat of Letitia's black Lincoln Town Car where James was seated. Letitia asked, "Is she out?" referring to Dubois' belief to whether Dubois was unconscious from the drugs. ADA Lucy took her statements and noted she mentioned James. Dubois says that ADA Lucy later removed James' name. The investigative proceeded based on a revised statement of an unidentified woman. "I hear a woman's voice while I was in the public advocate's black car," she said. "Is she out?" Like the New York Post story, Letitia James' name vanished from the official inquiry. She didn't say no. In mid-2017, ADA Lucy informed her that no investigation would proceed. The Manhattan DA conducted no interviews of more than a dozen people Dubois identified, including Ibrahim Khan, then Chief of Staff to James, whom Du Bois accused of drugging her and whom later would be accused by 2 other women. According to Dubois, the Attorney General's office explained their rationale for dropping the case. It was that Dubois had told them, or rather, that she did not tell them. She had told them that she had been drugged, kidnapped, and sexually assaulted. She said that people did it. What she did not tell them, the prosecutor concluded, was the word stop. Dubois had not protested. She did not say stop. She did not say no. Oh my God. Even though she later drugged and drifted, she did not say but one word, stop. She was half awake, half alive, but not half loud enough. That's what Dubois said they told her at the DA's office. Her alleged pain, her terror, her story meant nothing because in her own semi-conscious state, she failed to say stop. Not that she consented, not that there was evidence that she agreed, just that she didn't speak. Anna Brower used this decision not to pursue the case against Letitia James by Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance as evidence that Dubois was lying. Wow. Ironically, a year later, after declining to prosecute the case, Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance faced public criticism for not acting in the Harvey Weinstein matter. A year earlier, James' spokesman said, Dubois, "We are disappointed that a former employee would go to such great lengths to disparage public advocate's office and our team." Well, this is crazy. Well, all right. All right. Well, I am going to say goodnight to everybody. It's been 3 hours. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. This is going to shuffle you over to Joe's if he's still going, which I think he is. So I will see you all tomorrow or the next day. Thank you for coming, and thanks for being here and letting Jim tell you the news.